me? Can you hear me? All right, Dave, go ahead and play something. Can you hear me? Okay, so you're hearing me now. Oh wow. I am not sure what happened there. Okay, so I have to check to see some things. Okay, good. Oh wow. Oh wow, yes. Okay, listen, nothing is gonna stop this train. It's echoing. You're hearing an echoing? Okay, is there an echo? Are you hearing an echo? No echo. Okay, so they're saying my voice is they're hearing an echoing. Anika Hope, are you hearing an echo? Say yes, I am hearing an echo. No echo. Okay, all right, no problem. Okay. All right. No echo. Sorry about that. Listen, let me do my proper greeting. Good evening, Barbados. How are you doing? We took 5 minutes trying to sort out sound. Really sorry about that. I don't know what went wrong there, but we are here this evening and all is well. All is well. And I tell you, we will have to go straight into the national anthem because we wasted so much time with the sound. Okay, so we're going right into the national anthem.
Who
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. No sound. Any sound? Sound now? Okay, wonderful. Okay, no sound still. Can you hear me? Yes, you could hear you. Wow. Okay, so there we're having some challenges here. All right, so we're here. You can hear me. Wow. All right, you can hear me. It's good. It's back. Well, we are praying. You know when this happens, we're going to have a great show. You know that we're going to have a great show when this happens. That's okay. That's okay. All right. So we have with us Mr. Glenn Murray tonight. Good night, Mr. Murray. Let's see if you're so.
Okay. Yeah, good night, Marcy. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, loud and
Good.
clear.
So am I. I'm hearing you quite loud and clear also.
Okay, wonderful, sir. Wonderful. And tonight you have a great presentation for us tonight.
If you would be so good as to read the title for me, please.
It says, do not be fooled by NCS wordy crop over, cover up, and cover down. That should say crop over, cover up, and cover down.
Right. And could you verify for the public what time yesterday I sent you that title, that suggested title for the presentation.
Yes,
My notes at 10:50 a.m.
yes,
yesterday.
yes, yes.
And I had no idea at all when that came to my head that I would have seen a front page story on the National there. Buck stops with me, a lengthy interview, three stories in the Sunday Sun with the CEO talking about crop over. I had no idea. It's just that knowing the personnel who are operating, having studied their style and their modus operandi, I expected something like that. That's why I said wordy. And it made me remember there's a chap called a chap from Carrington Village, a street, one of the regular characters in Carrington Village, a good friend of me. But he said he had a philosophy. It
Hmm.
was this: you can't cover down feces with a sieve.
Ah.
You cannot cover down feces with a sieve. So when I thought of cover for cover down, I also what Mr. Bellamy said. That was his mantra. In other words, whatever will be out will come out eventually.
Hmm.
And so with that approach that I took to the to this whole question of crop over 2024 and the words, because if you look at it, the Prime Minister, Ms. Motley, CEO, Ms. Roberts, and also the Minister, Dr. Chantal Moroni, they can be easily classified as a person having high verbal skills, right?
Hmm.
High verbal skills. That means they talk a lot. They talk fast, talk a lot. They can control words. They have great facility to recall words, put words in place and whatnot. And right, that's it. But when my knowledge of what they call high verbal skills, high verbal quality, high verbal intelligence quotient is that they also drawbacks. While these are assets, some people who have these very same skills have difficulty in translating words and talk into doing and actions.
Hmm.
So there's a disconnect between the talking a lot and the doing a lot. And I think those are very those characteristics came before as I review, I look at this story and the whole question of crop over uh 2024. Um, I, um, so the buck stops here. With buck stops here, I expected a quick, clear, clean talk straight from the chest, no hasword, bar discord, discourse. But I must confess, I was very, very disappointed. Long interview, then the three stories out of it. I can only deal with one section tonight. And says little or nothing. Miss Roberts says up front she's not making any excuses, but then when you read through the fine print, it's full of excuses. Um, so I am saying that First, let me look at the whole question of the disappointment. What my major disappointment with the presentation with Roberts is that her interview and none of the interview stories I've read has she made any reference to one of the most talked about aspects of the crop over,
Mm.
particularly pick of the crop finance night. The strongly report the allegations of mistreatment to the president of
Oh,
Barbados.
yes.
So I would think this is the highest office in the land. People were offended. I think people are still offended. As recently as today, people, as far as I know, were still talking about it. But I would have thought that Ms. Roberts, as CEO, would have seized this opportunity to to deny, confirm, put it in context, etc. But there was no mention at all, as though it did not happen. When in the
Mm.
public's mind, it did happen. It did occur, and people continue, like I said, to be offended. I myself am offended based on the reports I got. And secondly, I think that I've never been in favor of the so-called botanical gardens. My description of it, from having run across those fields many times when I was a young boy, is still a baking ground. Why would you put a product as important to crop over or anything in the baking ground? Miss Molly had, I think it was on the Saturday, her annual crop over party for the Linden Grove Foundation, which she raises funds for
Yes.
concerts. Why if the big campground is such a gorgeous place for events? She said she wants to make that venue entertainment capital of Barbados, major entertainment venue. Why did she not take her um, upmarket pick of the crop over celebration to a thing? It is not ready. It will not be ready for a long time unless a lots of money are spent on it. I think it's wrong, unfair to take people for any reason, especially people in mass countries where they have no ground to stand on. If the rain falls, they're exposed to mud, no
Yes.
proper bathroom setting. And every time an event set up there, it costs you money because you have to set up, you have to take in the sun, water, light. So every time you do it, it's an expense. To me, it is not ready, and there's not, it should, rather than trying to force it into the one it is not, it should back off and put that money into a proper venue where we can get returns on investment and where people can sit down in comfort and watch a proper show. Now, the Pick of the Crop is one of the biggest shows of the festival, and one of the most enjoyable, one of the most one traditional, one of the most attractive, because it really is well done. It's a big deep. You can unfreeze, you can relax, you can hear all kind of songs, hear humor, good music, good lyrics. It's a distressing situation. That's why people look forward to it. And I think one of the reasons why people have been so upset and angry and disappointed at the fiasco, the shambles that it was because it means so much to them. It has gone almost flawlessly for years. I don't think it's ever started 90 minutes late before.
Mm.
Never. And in 50 years, where our expertise for representation of shows, you yourself have made mention of it, you've experienced it. Where
Yes.
we've exported down the Caribbean. Some of our people have gone down the Caribbean working for in politics or shows with X because we've taken for granted that it would always be a grant. So to me that set the tone for the climax of crop over. And after that, nothing seemed up to standard or worthwhile. So when Miss Roberts says anything, I will take the blame. I said, good, good. Um, she said calling for her head will not solve the issues faced during the staging of the fifth anniversary Swedish Scrapper Festival. That's just an emotion and solves nothing. I accept as the NCF and its leader fully responsibly and vehemently apologize to the public. Work must be done. No, then she goes into the escape. Says she accepts full responsibility. Then says, work must be done here at my end. Work needs to be done across the sector. Work needs to be done among uh, stakeholders. I thought she was responsible for NCF on this work. I didn't know she was also responsible for the stakeholders. Why? So I thought the buck stops. So how does she then therefore deflect some of the responsibility to the stakeholders when the buck stops with her, or so she proclaimed. So I think it's an empty declaration, and she has not lived up to it. She goes on. She goes on where she says that I understand why people are generally disappointed and why they're expecting more. But I also said that some people need to pay a little bit more attention to the full rundown of the calendar and look at the events week by event. She said, adding that planning started in December. I don't think she just said that. So if planning started in December and this is what we got, why? What happened between now and then in December? And and she talked about the late start due to technical issues. What were the technical issues? I've been around shows, I've been around crop over on a number of occasions when I was minister and stayed in the Prime Minister's office, and the Prime Minister had responsibility for culture. I've had to be involved in overseeing crop over. Why? How could it be that you could come on the day of a festival 3 or 4 hours before the show starts, and there's no sound, there's no light. There used to be a checklist, a day by day, hour by hour, and you check as to what is doing. You have call times, setup times, etc. I mean, it's unbelievable that in 50 years this is what we can come to. And this excuse was since December, goes back to December. Then she talks later on that how we had the NCF said that she had a small team to work with on all events under NCF mandate. Small. Wait, how big is the small team? Was it smaller than usual, or what were the numbers? If so, how were if they were so small for Kroger? Was it smaller for Kroger than it was for World Cup? I am getting reports that about 135 people have passed through the doors of the NCF in the last year. I think it's 135 or 30. Or sorry, maybe it's 35. It's probably 35 people. 35 people is a fast turnover. If that is true, it means that they have a structural, systemic, institutional problem. So I want to know whether the small size is because the establishment needs more people, and because the IMF they cannot hire more because the IMF has put a brakes on what they call transfers, what the subsidies to government state institutions, and the NCF is not by nature a revenue generating, or it does not sustain its own revenue. Not so it cannot now depend on the central position of the government to think. So I'm saying, why were you limited? How were you paid for your work in World Cup? Was the NCF assigned to World Cup, but which was a money making event through Comey. Comey was hiring out, branding all goods and services and staff to people to do the work. I say the NCF should have been treated as such, and the NCF should have made that opportunity to make money as an institution, unless the people who from the NCF were paid as individuals. So I am totally confused as to how in this day and age we could be end up in such a sorry mess. It was an embarrassment, and no excuse could be good enough. She said that so she also said there were a number of other things, but coming out of Crop Over World Cup in June, we were time was pretty constrained. This was everybody knew years ago that we were coming to 50 years. There should have been a parallel operation, one for the regular crop over and one for this special event, and you merge the two as you multitask, you do several things at the same time. I've done it in events, I've done it in political campaigns where you start one, you have, and you go on, you merge towards as the time comes, you bring in, you drop out or what, but you keep it rolling. So I mean, NGF after 40 years as an institution in 1984 and 50 years of crop can only do one thing at a time now. I'm totally confused and disappointed. I think that the NCF needs to do better on this. I think what really needs to be done. I don't think this interview, as detailed and as lengthy as it was by Roberts, is good enough. I think what we need is a full-fledged, good old-time days press conference where you sat down around a table. You don't do interviews with your favorite journalists or people who are friendly, or you sit down and face the media face to face as professionals,
Mm.
as representatives, and let them ask the questions. I think that election, I think both CEO, Ms. Roberts, Dr. Chantal Monroe, who was the minister directly responsible, and the Prime Minister should attend such a press conference and be subject to the questioning by the media. Otherwise, I think we are we're just insulting the public and making mock sport out of them. We need answers. I don't think that we should gloss this over and then let it be overtaken by other events, and, and then it becomes something which you only wish for. And no answers are given so far that's satisfactory. And so we still have a long way. To me, this story is not finished yet.
Not
There
at
are other
all.
parts, and I think we need to ask more. I still need to know, as a self-respecting Barbadian, who have always had the highest respect for our institutions, including when there was a governor general and now when there's a president. The office, and not the person who holds the office. Why is it true or is it not that Dame Sandra Mason was treated in a particular way? It was below the standards that would have been expected and deserved and demanded of somebody who said us there. I have been in the past when there was a hosted events or assisted the hosted events when the governor general was present, and there was a detailed step by step, well organized protocol as to who should meet the governor general, who would escort them. Everything is all right. So to hear that what went on with the president, it really, really is quite unbecoming. And the NCF really should apologize to the president if it's true. I don't believe, and saying that they've not come out and taken issue with any part yet of the reports leads me to believe that there's a lot of truth in it. I think they should come out and eat humble pie because it's a head of state and let the public know what's going on. Because things are running too loose with our symbols and with our offices, with our institutions, and the way they run. For example, the prime minister was heard I think it was a podcast or whatever you call it, when she was urging people to wear their national colors in support of Shada Williams in the Olympic final. Excellent gesture, good gesture. The prime minister then talk about, remember, blue, yellow, black, blue, yellow, black. The prime minister of all people should know that the official colors of Barbados for the flag, right? Black, ultramarine, gold. The blue, yellow, black came with, I think, about 2003, 2004, with Peter Ramsong, and then it was carried on with Natalie.
Mm.
But the prime minister should know is blue, black ultramarine, which is blue, and gold. So she should not be, all is doing is reinforcing further. We will never be able to convince the younger generation that the official colors are black, gold, and ultramarine. These
Yeah.
things are serious and they have consequences. And I think we have to, when they are reviewing and retaking and restocking, they have to go back to the very beginning. But the NCF has to come back again and come good and expose themselves to full public disclosure, and let us have an idea as to the true intent, the true extent of the going on with the crop over. I don't know whether you want to say anything, Ms. Marcia, about my presentation thus far.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think what I really love about it is how you pick down the article, because when I read it, I said, "Wow!" But you're saying that the buck stops with you, but you have even blamed the businesses,
Right,
right? You're saying
right.
that they're not sponsoring as much as they should, and we know why, because the economy is not great, and the product, the product you're offering, the standards are lower and lower each year. So who wants to be associated with that? Those are
Exactly.
some of the things that we have to look at. But I think, as you said, as I looked through the paper, I almost called you today and said, I wonder if I'm mistaken. Did you see anything in there with her actually, actually, 1 second. Okay, Mr. Murray, a little noise is coming through. I'm going to mute your mic until you're ready. if she actually apologized to the president or acknowledged what is alleged that have happened. Well, I happen to have spoken to somebody there, somebody who is normally in the technical, deals with some of the technical aspects of crop over, not necessarily the finals, but they are technical specialists in the arts community in Barbados. And one of the things that that particular person said to me, they said that the Governor General's detail, as Caswell had been saying, and Miss McLean, that they came actually the day before. And it was agreed where the president was going to sit. So this is now, we're getting this information from people who would normally be around Krapover and offer technical services one way or the other. And they said that the president's detail, they came to the facility as per normal, right? And that they actually, they checked, and they decided exactly where she was going to be seated. However, by the time she came the next day, they moved her and put her somewhere else, near the toilet, and where she could even see the screen. Exactly what Caswell said on here, was confirmed also. And so I think we need to officially, on the Marcia Week show, officially ask the NCF the question: was the president disrespected, or did the president have to leave the event on the pick of the crop final? Was the president properly seated, and were the protocols properly observed? I think we need to officially ask Ms. Roberts to answer that question. The Barbadian public would want to know exactly what happened. We want to
I,
know. This is a question to the NCF. Go ahead, Mr. Murray.
agreed. And they should explain why the president left prematurely. If she left, was she ill? Was there a security problem? Why did she leave? Those things need to be explained. And I'm glad I heard about the technical stuff, because I think Dorsey Boyce, you must know Dorsey,
Yes.
a legend in his field. I've worked with him on many occasions in government, outside of government. And he's an absolute genius and a perfectionist. I've worked with these kind of. There was only one time when Miss Motley was acting prime minister, South Carolina Prime Minister Mr. Arthur was out of the country. It was crop over time, and I therefore had their responsibility for culture. And our ceremonial delivery of the last games in Queens Park. It was in Queens Park. It's probably around 2002 or so. It was the ceremony was the start at 2 scheduled time. I was there by 1:15, because I always went before and check, so that if any difficulty, you have time to correct before 2 o'clock. I wouldn't go like 5, 10 minutes to 2 and get my seat, because they had a responsibility to make sure it goes well. The prime minister of the country. Um, about quarter two or so, I called Miss Molly. Miss Molly was acting prime minister. She was supposed to come in, take part in the ceremony at Queen's Park. I was told she should be leaving shortly. About 5 minutes later, I called again. I was assured that she'd be leaving shortly. No, don't worry, she'll be there. 2 o'clock came. I called again. I called about three or four times, and I was sure that I'd be on my way. 3 or 4 people coming here. At 2:10, when everything was standstill, all set up in Queen, the country was waiting to start the show. I told Mr. Boyce, let's get the show on the road, because Prime Minister Arthur would never have kept the
Yeah.
country waiting. And we started the show at 10:10. And when that happened, when Miss Motley came, but sometime after 2:15, she never went to the front of the chair. She sat. She never interacted with me. Sat. Never took any hospitality. Sat. Did not come in where she'd normally be seated at the front row. And that's because we started the show later than the show, but we started because it was the show for the public and not the show for the prime minister.
All right.
The sub-started prime minister. So you understand. I did that. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
So Dorothy has been a stickler for years. Nothing apart from that I've ever worked with him. I've worked with him here and outside the Barbados ever started late.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think as he has retired, but I understand the person or who is or was there now has some connections with the friends, family, and fornicators clique.
Yeah. But
And therefore,
even with Darcy Boyce, and we're going to close off this section very soon. With Darcy Boyce, that technical person that told me that Darcy, who is everybody knows, I mean, he is excellent. We've had. I'm going to just sing his praises because it's true. It is true. And Darcy actually. Because it is being alleged, and this is what was told to me by this technical person who is normally around the NCF and so on, and they said that it's because of Miss Roberts. The allegation is that it's because of Miss Roberts. Why not only Darcy has moved away from there, so we would like for Miss Roberts, because we don't know if it is so. So we'd like Miss Roberts to be able to tell us that, because Darcy Boyce is a fixture within Crop Over and has helped us as a country to produce at that level, that quality, because just of how he runs his business. So we need to know what happened to Darcy Boyce. Is it that
I think he has retired. I think he's officially retired from the NCF.
he
And they're
still
supposed
has
to
his business, but he's not
yeah.
working with the NCF. And the behind the scenes, what they're saying, it's because and that there's several persons have left because of the relationships and so on. Those are allegations, and I think Ms. Roberts needs to answer why.
Let me assure you, the matters involving Darcy Boyce go beyond Miss Roberts.
Yes,
it involves me.
Well, we won't go into all of that tonight, so we don't even have the time.
I'm just saying there's much deeper than that. Before we go, just let me commend Dwayne Grissett for a quality presentation last week. I thought he was very forthcoming. He sounded sincere. He made sense. He could follow the story. And I thought he opened our eyes to a lot of aspects of what's happening. And I want to commend him because I had not heard him at that level for such an extensive period of time, for years. But I want to commend him for the quality of his presentation. I think we learned a lot from it. And I think he should keep doing what he's doing.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see the general is here. Good night, Caswell. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, good night, Marcia. Good night, Glenn.
Good night. Good night, Caswell.
The viewers. I have a lot of things on my mind, Marcia, but I promised to discuss these contracts. These people working on contract. So they say. I want to talk about them. But first, before we do, Marcia, there's one thing I want to slip in. I sent it to Dave. If Dave could, it's a judge pronouncing sentence in England. It's going to be just about 2.5 minutes or so.
Yes.
And it is frightening for what can happen to the people of this country because it fits right in with the cybercrime bill. This guy posted some things on Facebook, sent some. We posted them again. Now that people saying the wrong things.
Yes.
Well, look and see what's happened to him. Dave, if you can do that for me right now, and you will see what's happening.
Actually, I think we have it here. We have it in Dave. I think I could play it.
Mm-hmm.
You have been committed for sentence, having pleaded guilty to an offence of publishing written material which is threatening, abusive, or insulting, intending thereby to stir up racial hatred. The context of your offending is that it arises out of the civil unrest and disorder in many parts of the United Kingdom. On the night of the 2nd and 3rd of August, the Britannia Hotel in Leeds was attacked by people who threw missiles which damaged windows. The police were called, and on the 3rd of August the hotel was locked down for the protection of those who were living there. At the time, there were 210 occupants, many of whom were foreign refugees and asylum seekers. Similar attacks to the hotel were launched on the 4th of August. The police attended on each occasion, and units were deployed to safeguard the hotel and to provide an increase in the police presence in the area. In between the two attacks, you took to social media in order to encourage others towards participation in the attacks upon the hotel. As is recognised on your behalf, this offence is so serious that an immediate custodial sentence is unavoidable. Would you stand, please? The sentence that I pass has been reduced by 1/3 to reflect your guilty plea. The sentence is one of 20 months imprisonment. You will serve up to 1/2 of your sentence in custody before you are released on licence. If you fail to abide by the conditions of your licence, you can be returned to prison to serve some or all of the remainder of the custodial term. The victim surcharge will apply, and I will make a collection order. Return to prison.
Wow.
Marcia, if that does not frighten people with this tendency for posting on Facebook and posting everything, nothing would. Now we're seeing, well, this guy is lucky. He got away with 20 months, and he's going to get half off if he behaves well in prison, that kind of thing. But ours is 7 years. You see, so while people might think that we were just being reactionary, and now see for yourselves, because this bill that we have is patterned off what they have in the United Kingdom. And you know, Guyana, they just copy and paste and change Barbados and put the same piece of legislation around the world. They want to have these various dictatorships around the world, and you can see now it is happening. Fortunately, we can look and see and say, well, sorry, we don't want this. But you see the consequences. He posted something on Facebook, and for posting, he's going to get 20 months. And Barbados is a hell of a lot more than 20 months, or 84 months.
Wow. And that is what and I'm so glad you showed that, Mr. Franklin. And there's a video going around which we're putting together to getting ready to show before the week is up, of Mr. Bean. You know, the actor Mr. Bean, who is against it. And you know, I mean, it's really, really terrible. And if in there in the UK, where it's coming from, because you know, ours was drafted by them. You know, and they're doing 20 months, right? And we are 84 months, as Mr. Franklin. You see how draconian this Mia Mottley government is, because you know it's basically a dictatorship. But continue, Mr. Franklin.
All right, I just wanted to put that out there for people to see. I want to scare you. I want to scare people into coming to this senses and say that this footage just has to stop. So that was positive for that reason only. Let people see what can happen to them. It's going on. You know what happened in England, what happened in the States? This happened here.
Yeah, this guy saying the 7 years is a maximum sentence. We know that. You're stating the obvious, Denton. We know it is a maximum sentence. The challenge that we have is that if you check, I don't know if he has done any research, our cybercrime bill has the most, one of the most, the longest sentence. It's even longer than Nigeria's. I don't know if you know that, Mr. Franklin, right? Ours is longer than most of the other countries. It's the most draconian. It's the Mia Mottley's government cybercrime bill because of the dictatorship. But go ahead, Yeah, he said.
See, we always have people coming in to defend the indefensible, you know?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
That cybercrime bill is not defensible. You know, and I keep telling the people, everything in there. We have certain the child pornography and stuff. Oh, we don't want to vote against that child pornography. That is already in legislation. So you just repeal that and replace it. You take it out and put it back. So all you have to do is leave it where it was and continue. Even though the Computer Misuse Act, I think, is a bit strong too, and to repeal that and make it stronger. So just, you know, every time somebody says something that about this government, they get their knickers in a knot. You know, they rush off and they make these comments and stuff. So stop and think, man. You know, it'll be good. Anyhow, look, I want to talk about contracts.
Yes.
A contract. Let me talk about contract. A contract is an agreement between two parties where there's an offer and acceptance. But there are things that must be in there. There must be some sort of consideration for a contract to be a ready contract. Consideration means money. And you must intend to do it. Obviously, also the subject of the contract must be something that is legal. You know, you cannot, like for instance, you cannot go up Bushel and contract with a person for their services, and then when the person says take the money and run, you can't go and sue them. So the thing must first be legal, right? An employment contract, however, it's just a contract. It seems it's a contract offer, acceptance, agreement. It sets out but what it does, it sets out the terms and conditions of the employment. However, and I'm keeping a lot of howevers, the contract is subject to certain pieces of legislation that you must observe, right? And the first one I want to talk about, they've hit it again, is the one, the national insurance claims and questions. Sorry about my big books, but I rely on these for guidance. That is the National Insurance and Social Security Determination of Claims and Questions Regulations 1967. And we're showing section 3, right? And why I'm showing this is that a lot of people decide, oh, we are going to change you from an employee to a contractor, right? The only authority in Barbados to determine whether your job is that of a person providing services or a contract of service. It becomes a contract of service where you are an employee, or a contract for services where you are a contract, like a fellow who builds your house. The fellow who's building your house, you hire somebody to build your house. He doesn't necessarily put up one single cement block or drive in one nail, but he is a contractor. He will get the service. He will bring in masons, he will bring in carpenters, and he will get the job done for the time that based on your agreement. That's what a contractor does. However, if you are working and there is any doubt, the regulations provide the following reserved questions arising under or in connection with this act shall be determined by the board, whose decision shall be final, subject to the provisions of these regulations. And the questions are whether a person is or was an insured person. B, whether a person is or was employed in employment pursuant to Section 12. That means that you're an employee. And it says, as to the class or category of insured persons in which a person is to be included. And it goes on, whether contribution conditions for any benefits are satisfied, blah, 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 blah. And it says who or who is or was liable for the payment of contributions as the employer of any insured person. These are questions that can only be answered by the National Insurance Board. So no lawyer, no trade unionist, no nincompoop can decide, I am going to change people from regular employees to contract workers. You have to apply to the National Insurance Board, and the National Insurance Board will make that determination. So we see people in places like CIBC, they decided that they're going to call all their staff, no contractors, and provide all the tools for them. But yet still, they're not paying the national insurance anymore. What people are doing right now, including the government, is to avoid paying the employer's part of the NIS contribution. You pay 23.85% of your wages go into the national insurance. You pay 11.1% and the government pays the other 12, but whatever. Or the employer pays the 12.1%. The problem is that they don't want to pay that portion of the national insurance contribution, which will protect you from sickness. If you're sick, you get a benefit. You get a baby, you had the year, you've been there working for a year or more, you can get maternity benefits, injury benefits if you're hurt on the job. Later on down the road, you can qualify for a pension, and things like that. Now, if you do not have the contributions and you reach a situation where you're sick, can't work, even though you only get 66 and 2/3%, if you are an employed person by national insurance, you don't get a full salary, you'll get none. You can't work. You're working with somebody for the meager wages that the government walking about telling people is good for people. So you don't get nothing. You get a baby, you're off for 12 weeks. You get 12 weeks maternity leave, and you get that at 100% of your salary. You don't get that. If you're injured on the job, you get 90% of your salary. You don't get that. That is what happens when you don't pay national insurance contributions. And worse yet, if you don't pay the contributions and you reach retirement age or you reach the pension age, because in Barbados we don't have a retirement age unless it is settled in your contract, or it is a normal practice within the organization, or you have like public officers where there's legislation that says when you must retire. If you don't have any such thing, there is no retirement age, but there's a national insurance pension age. The pension age now is 67. It's going up to 68 over time. But the last set of legislation that was amended last year around the same time. But I'll come back and undo it and do it over again, I think, later, because I realized that it was awful. It's still bad, but they rushed it and did it wrong. So only the National Insurance Board has that authority. So a lot of people come to me and they say, they're telling me now that I got to pay my own contributions. No. If you fail to pay contributions that are due, you have committed a crime, and the National Insurance Board will refer to the police or whatever and get you prosecuted for it. It's a criminal offense. Unfortunately, it's not a criminal offense for government because you're going to lock up. Prime Minister, as much as they would like, you can't do it. So these employers are, but the thing is, national insurance don't seem to want to lock up anybody. But the legislation is there. When you're not paying the national insurance contribution, you have committed a crime and you should be suffering the consequences for it. Because a lot of people will be in a situation where they're going to suffer as a result of your criminal behavior. But you want to save some dollars. You are employing people in Barbados, and the law sets out certain terms and conditions for which under which you must employ people. So it is an employment contract has certain provisions. People, a contract can be written or it can be oral. However, in Barbados, since the implementation of the Employment Rights Act, they don't say that you don't have to have you must not have all contracts must be written. But what they have done, and if you go on out to the Employment Rights Act and Section 13 that I sent to you last week, even though you don't have to write the contract, there is something that almost approximates to a contract, and it is called in the Employment Rights Act. Not that one, that's not mine. It is the Employment Rights Act, Section 13. That's not mine there. It's Section 13 of the Employment Rights Act. It provides that where a contract of employment is contemplated, the employer shall, prior to or forthwith upon the commencement of the contract, give the employee a written statement of the particulars of the employment. So even though your contract could be oral, the employer must set out certain particulars in writing. Not necessarily the entire contract, but and this almost approximates to a contract. And it says if you go all the way up to page 13. Let's scroll down all the way to go to page 13. Because I want people to follow me.
Yes, and while you're doing that, we're asking people to continue to share. And as it says on the screen, we're giving 1 whole hour. We're going to be talking about the high cost of living in Barbados. And we want you to take a copy of this link that is there and to use the link to come in to tell us your experience. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin.
Yes, thanks, Deb. Just right. It says where a contract of employment is contemplated. Yeah, just go up a little bit more to 13. Yeah, 12 now. It says the employer shall in law is mandatory. You must do it. You don't have a choice. It doesn't say if you feel like or nothing like that. It says that the employer shall, prior to or forthwith upon the commencement of the contract, give the employee a written statement of the particulars of the employment. That's subsection 1. But subsection 2 goes on to say what is contained in the statement. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to give you because it's fairly extensive. It says the statement must say the name of the employee and the name and address of the employer. That might sound funny, but many times you go to the national insurance to claim severance pay, and people do not know the correct name of the employer. So now you must put that in writing, because if you don't know the name of the employer, you can't sue him. The date when the employment begins or began, as the case may be. So if you want to start working from tomorrow, they have the date. If you were working before and the company is bought over and they don't serve you, but they bring your services over, so they got to say the contract that your services will be treated as though you were employed from the day you were employed by the old employer, or in a situation where you were promoted. Even though you're promoted on the 1st in this month, but you were working there all the years, the contract, this statement will have to say that you were employed with us from how many years before, right? the date when the employment begins or began, as the case may be, and then C, the date on which the period of continuous employment of the employee begins or began, as the case may be, taken into account any employment with the previous employer. That's what we're talking about just now. D, the title of the job which the employee is employed to do, a description of the work for which he is employed. F, the scale or rate of wages or the method of calculating wages. You know, this is very important because I right now I'm going through a case at the labor department, and the employer says in the thing that we will pay you based on some formula that they didn't specify. They didn't tell you how much. Leave it up, because I mean, no, you have to tell the people in the contract how much they are working for. You can't, or tell them, like for instance, if you're working for $5 an hour, they can't work $5 an hour, no, because that's illegal, but $8.50 is the minimum wage. If you are working for $10 an hour, you have to put that in the contract. And then they're going to tell you can be paid weekly, monthly, fortnightly, or whatever. The rate, the interval at which rate you're going to be paid, the normal working hours, and then the period of probation, if any. And then it says the length of notice which the employee is obliged to give and entitled to receive in respect of the termination of his employment contract. That is settled in Section 22 of the Act, the amount of notice that you must give, but you have to give, but you have to put it in the statement. Then here is the period for which employment is expected to continue, where the employment is not intended to be permanent, or the date when the employment is to end, where it is for a fixed term. Mind you, even though you might have this fixed term contract and it goes over a year, you still now have to treat a person as though you got to take him to a meeting, let him know or not the employment determination will still be unfair. That is done because over the years we've had instances where, and especially the lawyers, they would hire people for 23 months because you have to be working for 24 months, 104 weeks, in order to get severance pay. So what even if they terminate you unfairly, and you weren't working for 2 years, you didn't get any compensation for unfair dismissal either. So what a lot of employers were doing, they were terminating people in 23 months. And so you walk away. This section here tried to avoid it, and also further on in the Act, Section 27, it brings down out for unfair dismissal to a year. I feel it should be further down because a lot of people are still sending home people in 6 months, like BRA. And while I'm touching this, I can touch at BRA at the same time because what BRA is doing to its staff, they are hiring people, calling them sessionals, letting them work for 6 months and then sending them home, bringing somebody else and sending them home again. And so people don't have any security of tenure, and this is a government agency that is doing it. Unfortunately, what they bring people as sessional cashiers. And what has happened, these cashiers don't have any security of tenure. They don't know when they're going to job, if my job going to continue. So, you know, the fellow getting out a lot of money. And they carry some. Mind you, they hide it up. Some of them, one of the persons was related to a senior person up there, and they didn't suffer the consequences of the law. They just let them go peacefully. But government, when it first came into the service back in 1980, government had a requirement that you had to be appointed to work with government money. Because what they didn't want you to do is to carry the money and run. Because if you get caught and you're an appointed person, and you got years of service, you can lose your pension. So you're going to be a pauper after when you reach retirement age. So that was something that stopped people from, at least it wouldn't entirely stop everybody, but it would be a deterrent, knowing that if you get caught stealing and you're an appointed person, you can lose your job. And when you lose your job, you also lose your pension, right? But Brando is trying to make sure that it doesn't give anybody security of tenure, and they're bringing people in. This is a government agency, so they're giving work almost like contract work.
Right.
Right. And and I tell you, the next one is the place of work, or where the employee is required or permitted to work at various places, an indication of that, and the address of the employer. So when people tell you I work from home, you don't have to, because that was not where you were supposed to work. That was not in your statement of employment particulars. But people liked it because they can start home and take care of the baby at the same time when everybody's locked down. So a lot of people like it and stuff. And right now, we have a situation where a lot of people, especially senior people, when they don't want to work, they tell people, I'm working from home. They ain't got nothing to do at home. We even had a prison officer working from home. They get prison officer and said, she had a lot of sick leave, and then they said, she's working from home. I want to see how you guard prisoners from home. But these are things that happen in the public service, right? And the next one is if there are any collective agreements which directly affect the terms and conditions of the employment, including where the employer is not a party, the person by whom the collective agreement were made. And then it says, and any terms and conditions related to any of the following: holidays with pay. For instance, you're entitled to 3 weeks holiday with pay, or if you work for less than 5 years, or 4 if you work for more. But there's some places that give you 6 weeks. Some give you 5 weeks, depending on your level. Yes. So if that is the case, you have to put it in the contract, right? And then it says here, the other one is any incapacity for work owing to the sickness or injury, including any provision for sick pay or a health scheme. And then it says also pensions or pension schemes. So these are the things that must go in the statement of employment particulars, even though they are not a contract in itself. They are not required. So now what people can do, they can incorporate the statement of employment particulars into a contract and give you one document altogether. But this information must be given to you before you start the job.
Yes.
Or as soon as you start. So you cannot have a situation where a person is working and he does not know what these terms are. They must be known. They are stated. They are required by law. Now, so we've given you what the Employment Rights Act says, and we've given you what the National Insurance Determination of Claims and Questions here. And these are binding on employers. So when you tell a fellow, like NCC was employing people to do the cleaning up and stuff, run the botanical gardens and wherever else they were working, and calling them private contractors. Right. We made a lot of noise about that on this show. Yeah. And one of the things that we concerned ourselves about, and I'm going to talk about them later as well, because the same Employment Rights Act, the first schedule, if they've calculated, we get there. There are certain terms and that would determine if it is a contract of employment, where you have a contract of service where you are an employee, work for you, pay insurance, and that kind of thing, and they can hire you. I can dismiss you and that kind of stuff. Or it is a contract for services where you get somebody to do the job and you pay them for doing a job. Like he can work for other people and all other kind of things, because it is not exclusive. You're working for this person, and so what NCC did, one of the things is that if you provide the tools for the person to work with, people have to be backers. They were given to be backers. So National Conservation Commission is a government agency in an attempt to hoodwink people and to cheat people from their national insurance contributions. NCC gave the workers the workers and said, you have no private contractors because you tools that you're working with, and they pay for them. They gave them the tools. But exactly. Because they realized or found out, they decided that be learned from the march to make sure that if you provide the tools, that is only one of the grounds, because there are a certain set of considerations, factors that determine if it is a contract of employment. And so what they have done, they have decided that they're going to take one. They're going to take one, and then rule out all the others. So if you go along to it's page 47.
Page 47 of the same
the same document.
The same document. Right? Page 47. Okay.
You will see what the conditions are. And you just don't have one and say, or because they don't have one, it is not a contract. Because it is a combination.
Yes.
Right?
So, Mr. Franklin, we have another 5 minutes in this segment. Yes.
All right. Okay. Let me go so fast,
Yeah. Okay.
There are.
Go ahead.
I'm getting a question on my phone here.
Yes.
And the person asking, for contract workers, the QH, if one falls ill, your salary is stopped, and you have to be paid for by the national insurance. A person who works on contract in the government, so for instance, let's say the central government, they have a contract in a particular post. So they're like, for instance, Dr. Haynes, the one that they fired a few weeks ago.
Yes.
He was working continuously from 2001. So they must now continue to employ him under those same terms and conditions, and the contract was renewed all along. And then the permanent secretary sends a letter and says, sorry, we didn't renew your contract. They can't do that. And that was tested already in the court by Dr. Jerry Eptich, when the same QAH says that he is they fired him. The hospital said that they didn't renew his contract. He went to court. He was there working for years. He put him in court, and the court ruled in his favor. So I don't know what the government, knowing that was the case, still turn around to somebody else. But when the courts make a determination already, but I got to say to myself, So the doctors at the hospital, they are employees. They're not. They don't work for themselves, unless you have renting space from the hospital and working inside there. You are an employee of the hospital. Because if you weren't an employee of the hospital, when you go in there and the doctors do something to you and they don't work out together, you sue. You sue your hospital, right? But let me go on to tell you. In determining whether a contract of employment exists, consideration shall be given to whether, and this is the Employment Rights Act, the first schedule. There's nothing making up. And it says there's an obligation on the part of the employee to give personal and exclusive service. All right. Now, if I am an employee, I got to come in and work for myself. I got to come in and do it. If I am a contractor, I can bring my staff. Can you, pray tell me, can you see people coming into the registration department where the government now has contractors, and first I can't come into there so I can send one of my staff? No, that's not so. That means that the government is cheating those people in the registration department. And what hurts me is that the registrar of the Supreme Court is a lawyer and should know better and should tell the government, look, no, I'm not doing this. This is wrong. I remember when Sonia Brown was the chairman of the National Assistance Board, they wanted her to do something like that, and she refused because she determined, no, after getting advice that we are cheating these people, and she refused to do it. But she ain't chairman no more. But of course not the Madam Minister. But the situation was that she's not a lawyer, but she recognized something was wrong there, and she stood up. They wanted her to hire 400 companions and pay them a certain amount of money and call them contractors. I'm working for you. I can't send them my staff.
This is the same Dr. Sonia Brown, right?
Yes, it's the same Dr. Sonia Brown whose property they carried up. Right? They said the work is done according to the instructions of the employer, and the manner in which work is carried out is subject to the control of the discretion of the employer. That's easily understood. The work has continuity, and such continuity creates for the employee an economic dependence upon the employer without there being any financial risk to the employee. All that means is that I work for you. I depend on you to give me a salary so I can make my living, but if the company don't make the money, I don't have to compensate the company, or I don't have to put in any money or anything like that because I don't have any risk. If you tell me, and the next one is if you tell me when to come to work, right, and tell me where to work, then I'm an employee. And the work, and the next one, E is the work involves integration of the employee in the organization of the business, including his subjection to its policies. That's easily again understood. You know, you work for the people. You work in there.
Yeah.
F, the employee is subject to procedures of the business for addressing grievances and disciplinary matters. You have some of these people who you bring them before a meeting and tell them like they do so and so, and suspend them, and you say, how can you suspend a private contractor? You know, and then the employees in receipt of periodic remuneration payable on a stipulated basis, for example, hourly, weekly, or monthly intervals, and all such payments are subject to statutory deductions. And then they say the employee is entitled to holidays with pay. And the last one that we have in this section is, mind you, these are not all; these are just some, but the others settle in the common law. The employee makes no or only nominal investment in tools and equipment. So when the NCC gave the people the tools, I didn't have any investment in the tools. So that still doesn't make me a contractor because you give me it.
Yeah.
I don't have any investment in the tools.
So where are the law? I mean, you know, you're saying this, Mr. Franklin, and I think people are so concerned right now. But where do they turn to? Where are the lawyers that are supposed to stand up on behalf of these?
No, they turn to the Labor Department. But the Labor Department, I sat on a calling program with the Minister of Labor, who said just before we started these shows, Marcia.
Yes.
I was on the program, and he said that the government recognized it was wrong and they're not going to do it anymore and they're fixing it. That was what he said in a program with David Ellis and myself and somebody else on the show. Yet still, the Minister of Labor knows about these things, but continue to do them.
Right, because the
NCC continue to allow his colleagues to do them.
But I mean, this is so wrong, you know. This is so wrong. But as somebody says, there's no unity. We're not having that unity. All of those NCC workers should have banded together. I understand they can't form a union. That's what they can't join a union. That's my understanding.
Marcia, I was going to finish, but no, that you said that, I'm going to just love one thing. Every person employed in Barbados under a contract of service can join a union. If the employer put systems in place to stop you from joining the union or adversely affect your employment or dismiss you for or threaten to dismiss you for joining the union, it's a criminal offense. It's section 40A, 40 capital A of the Trade Union Act. And the employer is subject to imprisonment for a year or a fine of $1,000 or both. Nothing like cybercrime bill. It's only a year. So when people at Sandals come and tell me that they want to join my union, but they don't want the boy to know, because if you find a union at Sandals, you can be dismissed. And I show them the law, I tell them it, but they still want to keep quiet because they don't want to go through that process of having to go to court. So it is a crime in Barbados to try to stop somebody from forming a union or joining a union. It's a crime to even threaten their job. It's a crime to dismiss them. So when it happens, you get the police. But I remember I went to the police in a case with a company who fired some people when they joined the union. And the police tell me, go to the labor department. I said, but no, it doesn't be the labor department. I had to actually walk with the act and show them, no, it's for you, not the labor department. Because they're calling the labor department. The police didn't even know that they were supposed to enforce this piece of law.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is, I mean, as I keep saying to everybody, this is so much information for the entire Barbados. I hope we are taking, because these acts and so on, they can be found online, right, Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, they're online. The Employment Rights Act is online. The National Insurance and Social Security things, they're online as well.
Yeah, so because people, you can try and find the Employment Rights Act online and go through it yourself and know it, because this is a time where, they're going to try throw everything at us, every single thing at us. And one thing we're making sure on this show that the people are educated. Mr. Franklin, we thank you. And somebody's asking you, Mr. Franklin, when are you going to how are you going to be passing on this information? When you're going to train people? But you don't have to answer that now. But all right, I know we went over time, but this is a major thing right now because people are concerned about their jobs at this stage. There's a lot of concern. A little later in the program, after Ms. McLean, we're going to be talking about the high cost of living. We have a crisis, a high cost of living crisis in Barbados. If you don't know, I'm sure everybody knows about that. That's something that we are all experiencing, and we can't pretend. We're not pretending here. We're all experiencing this high cost of living. But I want Ms. McLean is going to share something with us that it has some impact on the issue of the high cost of living, or the high cost of living impact the group of people. So let me turn over to her. Thank you, Mr.
Before I do that, Marcia, a time for an ad. We've only got 199 people who said that they like the show out of 1,000 people watching right now. So let me get some likes, and thanks, Maxine, for letting me bother you there for a little bit, but we need this stuff. We need it.
Yes, like up the show, guys. Like up the show. And remember, there's a link. Remember, we have a link. This is a link that we want you to come on, and you can start coming on at 9 o'clock. I see there's a Tom Worrell inside. However, your devices are not connected. So you need to make sure that when it's time for you to come on, the devices must be connected, okay? Or we're not going to be able to have you on. But let's go to Ms. McLean, and for the next 20 minutes, she's going to share with us on this particular topic. Go ahead, Ms. McLean.
Thank you very much. And let me say that what I am going to share is connected to all that I heard this evening, because in listening to what Brother Caswell was saying, when we talk about the question of where are graduates, and I have a short PowerPoint with some questions, because I think much of what I will be able to do this evening, and you said 20 minutes. I listened carefully, Marcia. I know you're trying to be a good timekeeper. Yeah. So what I really would be able to do in that time is to pose some serious questions. Some of the details I would leave later. But listening to Caswell, what we are really hearing is the context, the environment in which our school leavers, whether they are secondary school leavers going into the job market or looking to create opportunities for themselves, because I say job market, it can be a self-employment situation, and the graduates of our tertiary institutions, they are facing an environment which is not as friendly, let me put it that way, on several fronts. The opportunities are not what they used to be. I believe that the mix of skills that are coming onto the job market are such that you will find some areas of major need, and on the other hand, some areas in which there are lots of people who can't find jobs. So I've identified some issues to be explored on the second slide. Basically, in that second slide, I'm asking the question, why should we concern ourselves with this? And generally, my concern is that when we talk about any phenomena, whether, or for example, recently, and if I have time, I will link this with it, the whole question of the unemployment statistics that have been shared, and really and truly how those should be interpreted. So anecdotal evidence, in the absence of hard and fast statistics, it is difficult to know what is happening with our school leavers or graduates of our secondary and tertiary institutions. And I also believe that there's some serious questions to be answered. Let me start by looking at the first issue of why concern ourselves. And on that second and that third and fourth slide, I have identified, and we can go to the next one because that's the basic question. Recognize that Barbadians are essentially the main resource that we have. As I said at the top of that, at the bottom, I do always say why concern ourselves. I pointed out, but that Barbadians are our main resource, the people. And as such, our investment in education, and I put it in caps, must bring returns to the graduate of our educational institution, or the graduates of our various institutions. And there must also be some very good benefits to the society. And by that, I mean that when we think of the cost of educating a Barbadian from nursery, because nursery education is now perhaps almost universal in Barbados, through to tertiary, whether they're at the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology, Barbados Community College, University, West Indies, in any of its faculties, there's an investment in time, in money, in, and the question is, having done all of that, what are the expectations of our young people? If I think of my goodness, when I graduated from University of West Indies in 1978, let me go back before that. When I left school in 1974, and I remember I had a conversation with one of my schoolmates. This year, we would have left school 50 years, Marcia, 50 years ago. Caswell, are you 50 yet? Don't answer.
Almost.
I know what you pretended.
I'm not seeing Mr. Murray. He would have been. He probably left how many years ago?
The interesting thing is, and Glenn will remember this. In my first year of teaching, Glenn was a student on campus. Glenn went to KFL as a mature student. That was my first year, and I taught some very close friends of his in my very first class. But that's another discussion.
I left Combermere in 1962.
All right.
Sixth form.
Okay, I wasn't seeing him there. I didn't realize he was there. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the point I'm making is that we when I left school, I remember saying to a friend of mine, and we were talking about this the other day, but we can't seem to get a job. This was out of secondary school because my plan was to work for 2 years and full-time and study part-time, which I did at KFL. And then I reflected that when university started in September, I had been working for at least a month or more. So what it really said to me that the whole perception of time before getting a job or the situation has changed dramatically. We have a situation now where people are graduating from university. And I don't think it was only COVID. It took some people 2 years to even find a job, not necessarily properly related, if at all, to the area of study, which is something we have to be prepared for. And so the question is, you know, when we spend our time studying, we have certain expectations. Now, the other important issue that I'm trying to list these issues because, you know, as I said, I'm conscious of the time. We also have to recognize people talk a lot about brain drain. Now, I have two kind of areas, perceptions or thinking, two different kinds of positions, that's the word I might want on that. For example, Barbados is an aging society. I mean, I just shared with you when I graduate, which tells you, Marcy, that I certainly am not by any means of stretch of the imagination a young person. I am a retiree. I would have studied, worked, realized what I call a level of self-fulfillment, self-actualization, which I'll come to below. I would have achieved what I thought and what I wanted out of my education at the time, from primary through to tertiary education. And I was able to get employment in different places and business and work experiences that gave me an opportunity for me to utilize my training, you know, the knowledge and so on. Now, the other concern is that while I grew up and Glenn and persons between our age groups grew up in a situation where Barbados was the average Barbadian household was a relatively poor household. And so but you didn't see crime in the way that we see it now, but also it was a society in which we lived outside of the radio. We didn't get the instant images of materialistic lifestyles and all of those things. We were shielded from some of those things. So in essence, what we're seeing now, when I go back to the whole question of expectations, that people are being socialized into these desires and demands and expectations about material things. And in the short, medium, and perhaps long term, if these things are not happening, people are not, you know, are willing to do crime. For example, tell a youngster who did not do well at school,
yes,
that he or she should go and perhaps work as a laborer on a construction site or work at a gas station. Some would look at you and say, "Who, me? Well, they don't pay me enough." And I asked the question, but what do you think you are worth in terms of value added? Because when you go to an employment situation, or if you look to create a business, you have to create some value in order for it to make sense for the person to hire you and to make sense for yourself if you are looking to earn a living. And so this is another area that we have to look at. What is happening to our young people? And I say young people because, again, when I was the age of many of the persons charged with murder right now, women were not committing certain kinds of crimes, if at all. But now we've heard women charged for murder. And so we're seeing a population of young people being involved in crime. And part of that perhaps has to do with a sense of despair, a sense of alienation, a sense of inability to realize hopes and dreams. And that takes me to the point that I have there about self-actualization. And I will speak to Nigel's comment about should you restrict job opportunities for Barbadians only. I do not think so, but I'm going to speak to that because I watched a video this morning or yesterday which drew something to my attention. So people want, at the end of the day, as for those people who might have studied management, you might have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People have certain basic needs for food and shelter and those kind of things. And at the top of the pyramid, so to speak, is what you call self-actualization, being what you envision you would be, what, you know, achieving that vision of success or whatever. Now, all of this comes through through the whole business of and we can go to the next thing is I'm going to try to make some suggestions. But before I go on to make some suggestions, I want to say to Nigel, I do not see that Barbados should restrict job opportunities for Barbadians only. I think we have, I don't know that we have a moral obligation to provide jobs for anybody. I think at the end of the day, what happens is that you would hope that any Barbadian who is seeking a job for which he or she is deemed to be qualified or qualifiable, if that is a word, because you may not have all of the requirements, but you might be, with training, you might be able to do the job well and grow in the organization. And so I would say that Barbadians should be given equal opportunities and so on for jobs. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and I noticed, well, let me also speak to Bali's comment about the brain drain. As I said, I think of it in two ways. There's a positive and there's a negative. Where it is negative, it is a drain. Where it is a positive, I call it a brain gain. And I'll illustrate it by looking at what Marcia and Glenn were talking about. In fact, when we talk about crop over, we are talking about one of Marcia's main interests, because I can't say her interest because she's a very multi-talented, multi-purpose, multi-focused person. But Marcia, as you know, is a filmmaker. She's into the creative arts, creative industries and whatever. That is her forte. That is a major part of her existence. Now, we in Barbados, for example, in some years ago, maybe about 10 years by now, the university introduced programs, formal degree certifications in the cultural studies. Barbados Community College for years have been training people in arts, that is fashion, in music, in theater, whatever the case may be. And as I listen to the discussion about the National Cultural Foundation and short staff, etc., and as I observe the comments of people about the weaknesses or the absence of any serious indicator of our 50th anniversary of crop over, I ask myself, where are the opportunities for our young creatives to have come together, supported by government, facilitated by government, and perhaps allocated some of the resources that have been allocated to influencers and so on, to create lasting memories, to carve out some interesting programs commensurate with the celebration of the 50th. And I say that because as somebody who coordinated the 50th anniversary of Barbados in the Barbados' independence, and the cross-section of persons that were involved in there, the various activities that were undertaken, I am thinking that when we talk about creating opportunities, it does not necessarily mean creating a job, and Caswell talked about contract for services and a contract of service. Now, contract for services is something that would fit very well into the mandate of the NCF, but I just wanted to use as an illustration. I don't want to get too deep into that because 20 minutes is probably almost gone.
Yeah, 5 more minutes.
But the point I'm making is that we have to do this now. As I said, in terms of some suggestions, I believe that, to go back to the notion that the analysis, we have to do some concrete analysis in order to be able to create opportunities for our students. A critical thing is, what are the profiles? When we talk about, can I go somewhere and get a serious, without having to delve into departmental reports one by one, etc. And this is something that somebody may do as an activity where they can sell information, for example. Yeah. What are the profiles? What are our graduates like? How many science graduates do we have as opposed to accounting graduates?
Correct.
And where are they going? And even in terms of doing that, if your son is pursuing his interest in film and so on overseas, if tomorrow he wanted to recommend some young people who could perhaps function as interns with a large entity, where can he quickly go and get some information which says, okay, we produce over the life of that faculty, because it's a faculty. Yes, I think it's a faculty. How many people have we produced in film, in dance, in whatever else, voice and whatever else, and so on. and you can do it by faculty. I taught at KFL at a time when my first class in 1982 was 98 students in management. And now when I left there 17 and a half years later, the numbers were in excess of 200. Now you can have, introductory courses with a couple hundred people, because that's the largest department. But what are they doing?
Yeah.
How long have they taken to find work? Tracer studies are something that are important. I actually have been searching, and I know that St. Augustine, some faculties have done them, but we need to have a sense of where these people are. And I've mentioned the university. The other training activities, I was part of the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme in its initial stages as other entrepreneurial programs. What have become, that program is now probably about almost 30 years old. What have become of the people who have passed through there? Have they created businesses? Are they creating employment for other people? Are they creating employment for themselves sufficient to allow them to earn? So my thing is that as we talk about government having to cut back on public officers because of the requirements to observe whatever arrangements have at the IMF, what are they doing? What is happening, one, to the people who used to work there and have been severed? Are they able to find jobs in the private sector, or is the private sector experiencing a similar contraction, or are they not? Or do they have to go and retool? What are the growth areas? So I am, and so these are the kinds of things that we need to do. At the top of my head, I would presume, because I've been associated with the university on a continuing basis, that any year you will have maybe 2,000 or so students graduating from the campus, I believe. But what's happening at the BCC? What's happening at BIMAP, which is a private-public, I suppose, arrangement for training of people who are probably, for the most part, employed, etc. Because at the end of the day, how do we plan? Because in talking about growing this economy, a very critical part of growing that will be the whole business of understanding your human resource base. And I am very concerned that we are not seeing any serious effort to address this. Now, it becomes very troublesome when we apply what Caswell has been talking about, the shifting focus away from employment and employer-employee relations, and creating a situation where you're a contractor, contracting organization, contracting the services. And I think the unfortunate reality is, where that is happening, it is not necessarily a reflection of what I would call your standard contract for services, but in fact, a convenient way of having the employer, whether it be government or the private sector, not have to meet certain statutory obligations. So Marcy, I wanted to touch on that because I think it is something that needs delving into in a significant way. As I told you, I was going to put a number of questions on the table, and I would later come back to look at some of these in more detail, because I think it's absolutely critical.
I think a lot of the suggestions that you made there about identifying the profiles of the graduates, we're not a big country. We should be able to do that, Mr. Franklin. I think that is something that we should be able to do, so that employers are, can have the information there to hand. We're small enough to do that. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Mr. Murray. Oh, Mr. Murray's there. Okay, your camera is off. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yeah. Okay. This whole discussion about employments and standards, what you have to understand, particularly when you're in the hand and the IMF is people finance run by people who have no consideration for benefits. I've seen benefits that were implemented in Barbados in 1951 and 52 and were taken for granted. now being totally ignored by this new ethos of employers, both locally and from abroad. And we have accepted it as a matter of fact, where you don't get vacation pay, sick pay, no sick benefits, no NAS, and so the whole neoliberal, they call it, philosophy is that you make profits, but you have no obligation, you have no social obligation to your employee to make life better for him at any stage. The rest is all up to him. I am afraid, especially when I heard the government saying that our development is to be led by the private sector. The private sector itself is not interested. The new private sector employers, you hear them, and these are even local companies. You'll be amazed how quickly the local companies have bought into this thing, where they're not interested in giving any benefits at all to you. Lots of short-term contracts, and they discourage the union. It really, really, I think we have to get back to a philosophy. I think government has to lead it. And that came clear when you heard these things of what's happening with Sanders. I almost vomited when I heard Tony Moore could not say Sanders. She was saying so, of course, I tell people, she could not bring in her mouth to say Sanders.
Oh, you noticed that too, huh?
I was disgusted. And the same day when the Barbados Works Union stalwart, Leroy Trotman, so Leroy Trotman have a building name after it. And there she is. They could not say Sanders, but led the campaign against anything Kentucky good. The press does, when anything goes wrong, the press pictures, interviewing, they come down hard at Kentucky. Could not bear in her mouth to say Sanders. I thought it was an obscene word she should be charged for. Disgusting. She should be ashamed of herself. She's supposed to be MP, but I didn't vote for her, so it doesn't matter. And I will not vote for either.
Go ahead, Mr. Murray. That's right. Make sure, check your camera. Your camera is off. But Caswell, you had a quick comment, and then we want to, because I wanted to make sure we have enough time for the people to call to come in. Go ahead.
I was saying, Maxine was speaking, but the things she touched on was self-actualization and not restricting jobs by barriers only. I want to touch on the self-actualization. The old people just say you're hanging your hat too high. People, they're socialized on the TV, right? And when they see what is happening on television, even the fellas coming to the place with a gun and holding it on the side and saying this kind of thing, TV. You can't hold a gun like that, you will hurt yourself more than hurt somebody else. But you never hit the target when you hold a gun like that. But it looks good on TV, and we buying on TV. What we need to do is to we had poor people, enough poor people when we were young, Maxine, but the poor people are not going to jail. Why? Because they're the best to work. We have to inculcate into our young people, not what they're seeing on TV, but what we can afford. We got marble pockets. Do not expect to be champagne.
Yeah.
And the other thing, that Maxine was talking about, she said she don't advocate restricting jobs for Barbadians. The problem here is that there are some countries that decide, well, look, you can't get these jobs over a certain level. That is, I believe that there are certain jobs that should be reserved for Barbadians. Now, for instance, we don't want people to come here and take their jobs as sanitation workers. We can do that. We don't want people who come here now and work at Checkmount and kill the chickens. We can do that. If you want people to come in now and work as financial consultants and that kind of stuff and medical doctors, yes. But there got to be
if we have vacancies.
Right.
Yes,
if they're vacant. Okay.
But we don't have vacancies. And right now we have, like, for instance, at Sandy Lane, you can't get certain jobs unless you wait.
So
and away and non-national, and they don't really do the work because it's then the fellow who's number 2 in the department, who is normally black, does the work. I remember the guy who knows how to do the golf courses. He went to Squat Lodge and went and studied how to handle grass and all kind of stuff, but never made it to the top. To bring in people who didn't know what to do, and he had to train them.
Yeah.
But he gets the little money. The fellow at the top get the big money. So we have to decide what jobs are for Barbadians, or even if they're not for Barbadians, our restrictions on the work permits must be rigidly enforced. You have people coming into, like, for instance, I talk about the guy from
1 minute,
Accra.
yeah. 1 minute, because we want to go through this.
I can less than a minute. The fellow Accra, when he came to Barbados, you know, they applied for work for him. They said no, Barbadians can do that job. So they pleaded and pleaded and pleaded, and the minister changed his mind and said, okay, you're gonna train somebody for the study. A Barbadian gonna get a job in 3 years. And at year 2.5, they fired the other study. And they said, but you know, and the study going so we can want another 3 years. And he's been there now, God knows how many years now. More than 10.
So certain jobs need to be reserved. I mean,
Yes.
That's what they're fighting for in the US right now, I tell you, but that's a whole nother story. But I promise the people, I'm being so militant about it, panelists, that we are going to do this. And if you notice, the numbers are climbing because this is what they want to talk about. This is what is bothering them. Of course, the workers' rights and so on, all of that is tied into this. Okay. But we are. They gotta eat, and you're correct. Barbados cost of living crisis, and we're gonna just do a little, just to a little information out there. And as we go through, we have about 10 minutes to go through this together, and you can stop me, and we just have a little talk in between. And even as the people call, we will talk. But I had a topic that says on the ad for the show that said thousands of Barbadians are living on the breadline. And somebody said, breadline, really? What do you mean by breadline? Well, according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the breadline means that a level of income at which someone is considered poor. If they could go to the next slide, right? So it is the level of income at which someone is considered poor. And I am seeing that. I don't know about you guys, but listen, it's all around us.
We have to coin biscuit line now because you can't afford the bread.
You can't afford the bread. I don't know if Dave is hearing me to move it to the next slide. I'm not able to do it. Yeah. Right. So we're basically on the bread line. We're no longer, the middle class is basically being wiped out. The average salary in Barbados, according to, sorry that it can't be shown. It seems I wanted us to look at it tonight. Such a pity. The average salary in Barbados, this is now according to timecamp.com. Timecamp.com, Miss McLean. It's saying that the average salary is Barbados 3,000 to Barbados 4,500. It's the average salary for skilled professionals. That this is the skilled professionals, okay? That's the average salary. 3,000 Barbados 3,000 to Barbados $4,500, and this is 2023, okay? Which is US 1,500 or US 2,250. However, when you look, Mr. Murray, at hotel workers, you talk about bartenders, waitresses, and so on, they are between $1,600 to $2,000 per month. So if everybody just write that down at the moment. Okay, so we're getting them to come up. We're at the next slide, the third slide. Right? Hotel workers are between 1,600 to 2,000. I called a couple of people, and there was an article put in the newspaper where the same Minister Colin Jordan was saying that they need to cap it. They need to have to standardize it, and it started at, for some of the hotel workers, $300 and something per week, or $400 and something per week. All right, so we say $1,600 to $2,000 per month. Okay, if you're a child care attendant, I'm hearing it's about $1,500 per month. A receptionist between $2,000 to $2,500 a month. But now let's look at the average monthly expenses. So we've looked at what is average for a skilled professional, between 3,000 to 4,500. And we've looked at people who are not necessarily, well, they're skilled, but they probably don't have, you know, a degree, etc. All right. Look at the average monthly expenses for a family of 4. Okay, so you know, we're talking casual mother and father and 2 children. And if anybody disagree with this at the research, they can, any of you can stop me at any time. And I hope Casual is checking the chat to see if anything in the chat that we need to think. Rent $1,200. Family of 4, so you think that they probably have a 2-bedroom house, or you know, they have a 3-bedroom, right? 1,200, we kind of make it conservative. Utilities, about $500 a month. Gas, if they have a car, about $720. I've checked, and this is what people are saying. If they have to drop the children to school and they drop themselves to work and all of that up and down with the children and so on. Grocery are probably about $1,200 a month. Anybody agree or disagree? And all this time you're making your way into using the link and making your way in, okay? Because I want to hear your thoughts on what we're talking about. Car payment is about what? $500 if you have a car. Let's say a small car like a Swift, right? 500 to 600. But if we're being conservative, I took the lower numbers, okay? Bus fare for the 4 of them, Mr. Murray, for the month is about $600. Is that correct? Anybody, any correction here? Higher purchase, supposing they probably took out like something essential, like people will take out probably a washing machine if the house doesn't come with that. You know, just things that are essential appliances to make their lives a little easier. They have to iron, wash the children's clothes and so on. It's about $200 to courts to pay for that. And then they say, you know, the small cooking gas per month is about $40, because a lot of people cannot afford a big bottle. A lot of people are doing small bottles. This is what what I'm being told, right? So let me know from anybody if they think you know, and this is our situation in Barbados. Now I want us to, if we were to go back up to the other slide where we're looking at go back up, Dave, to the other slide. So all of those expenses came up, Miss McLean, to about $4,960 per month of expenses, right, Mr. Franklin? However, if you're in a relationship with another hotel worker, so it's 2 of you are hotel workers, right? And you have 2 children. Whether you're taking the bus or you're not taking the bus, or you have a car, you're looking at over you know, near $5,000, $4,000, say over $4,000. You can't even cover that. And I was speaking to a grandparent tonight, and I said, but how do they manage? She said, but listen, I have to now take up the slack. I have to take up the slack. When the food is finished, then they have to come and get food at my house. You know, so I'm trying to show us is that the average Barbadian, Miss McLean, we're not making it. That's why I start the slide with the ramen and the corned beef. Very unhealthy. But a lot of people, that is what they can afford. And why is that so? Why I did it just a little, one more thing, one more slide here I want to look at quickly. Is the impact of the IMF on small and developing countries. There is what is called the imposition of austerity measures. After they've given you the money, after you've taken the people's loan. And as we know that in the Caribbean, Barbados, in the English-speaking Caribbean, based on what I've seen so far, Barbados seems to be the most indebted to the IMF at this point, okay? And in my research, all right? What are some of these measures that the IMF require? Increase in VAT, the introduction or increase or removal of any exemptions, okay, from VAT. These are things that they require. Remember, this is one of the first things our Prime Minister said, that we got to go to the IMF, right? Wage bill cuts, Mr. Franklin, you've been talking about that. Caps, wage caps, freezes, right? All of these things is what the IMF, so the IMF has us in a stronghold, right? pension or social security reform. My goodness, we've been talking about that. It is the IMF, reducing public spending, reducing social services, all of these things. So that's why, I mean, a lot of people are talking, Ms. McLean, about the privatization of the healthcare system, etc. And that means it's going to get worse for a lot of people. And we can see examples of this happening. If we go to the next slide really quickly, because I want the people to start coming in now. Happening in several countries around the world. That's what happened in Kenya, remember, right? When the prices became unaffordable for food and fuel. The same thing in Barbados. You have the car, you can't really go anywhere because the gas is too much. You can't afford food. Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Senegal, all of these countries, right? They're in debt distress or facing a high risk of debt distress, okay? Most countries are now facing an acute cost of living crisis and rising debts. And the last slide, the very, very last slide, and I see people who are in already. Let me make sure that their devices are connected. Loyal daughter 66, you have to go out and connect the device. And the last slide is when this Prime Minister Mia Mottley is finished, the middle class will become the working poor. That's what I really believe is happening in Barbados at this present time. Let me see who is there, Mr. Franklin. There is a Miss Resilient that is there. Miss Resilient is in. Hello, Miss Resilient. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcia. Good evening to your panel.
Yes, Miss Resilient. I love that name, and can I ask you why you chose that name for yourself?
I really don't have a choice but to be resilient. I really don't. I think that the only way we're going to make it is if we have some resilience.
Yes. And what's your experience with this high cost of living, this crisis we're in Barbados? What is your experience with that?
All right. We have often heard that it is ideal to live a healthy, balanced life and raise well-rounded children. When I carefully examine the resources required to achieve this, I feel defeated. The lack of financial and human resources makes this feat seems overwhelming. In life, we don't plan for death or the dissolution of relationships which render us single or single parents. Based on observation, it seems as though the extended family structure is not as prevalent as the single parent family. Hence, oftentimes, the burden falls on one parent. I am a single woman and a single mother of one minor child at present. I have a full-time job and I also have a part-time hustle, or a pick as you will call it. I cannot afford to live above my means. Therefore, I live a simple life. When I take a look at my income versus my expenditure, the young people have a saying, Marcia, the math ain't mathing. Let me share some of the costs because I saw that you covered some. So I'm going to give you some additional costs that we're faced with that affects me greatly. Outside of the rent, which we know can be astronomical, shuttle service. Now, there are some principals who are adamant that the kids must be off the compound by 3:30. For a lot of us, that is challenging. So therefore, we have to hire persons or pay persons for shuttle services. What that looks like financially is between $200 to $400 a month.
Wow.
So I'm asking the government of Barbados, you provide a bus service for the secondary schools. Can you look into having buses for the primary schools as well? Another factor as well, lessons. Now, if you speak to teachers throughout the island, you are going to be hearing the same thing. Since COVID, the children are behind. You're also a teacher. I'm sure you can relate.
Yes.
Now, they have been advising us not only to get involved and make sure that we're behind the children, make sure they do their assignments and that kind of thing. Outside of that, they're offering lessons. No, obviously it's not free. What does the lessons fees look like? Anywhere between 120 to $200 a month. And it depends on how many subjects they're being tutored in. So now they're out of school. Has anybody looked at the prices that have been charged for summer camps? And some of these summer camps that seem to be well structured and organized and exciting that these children really would like to get into. We're looking at a cost between, or let's say anywhere in the average of $100 a week. Then we get to the back to school expenses.
Oh,
When I
wow.
go into tell my head hurts. Marcia, my head hurts. I have one minor child. I empathize with anybody who has 2 and 3 children in the school system. My cost is $1,100 and I'm not finished shopping yet.
Wow.
And I want you to also
Wait a minute.
understand
You said
that
$1,100 for back to school, and you have one child?
I have one child in primary school.
But she says she has one child at present. I know that down, so she's still looking for more.
Yes, because
Well,
at
hold on a
present,
minute.
I said one minor at present because my older daughter is now an adult.
Can you go through because nobody else is here just yet, but your thing is quite interesting. So your school supplies is $1,100, and you're not finished shopping. You're buying uniforms.
Uniforms are being made. So that's material, that's uniforms. The books, not only text, but obviously they ask for other things, stationery,
But
12 exercise books, 4 textbooks. You've got the shoes, you have the bags, you have games clothes. What else am I missing? Oh, let me mention to you, the lessons teachers also have their own book list. So it's not only for the children at school, and it can mirror in cost. The socks, the undergarments, all the other trimmings as well, everything adds up. And I do not buy brands. I try to get quality for my money. I will give you an example where I use a local shoemaker to make the shoes. They are leather, and the only reason why she has to get them replaced is because it gets too small. But at the end of the year, they're still good. Now, when you compare that to having to go to a cheap store and get a pair of shoes for $50 or $60, you find yourself buying shoes in term 2 or 3. They don't last. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons. Something as simple as a water bottle, Marcia, it might seem a little bit trivial, but you have water bottles or drink bottles for the kids at $10.
Yeah.
When you look at this bottle, you know that by week 1, when this child dropped this bottle, out goes the cover and it cracked. So which means then the weekend after the first week, I ain't town again, right? But when you look at the sturdy water bottles, you have to pay at least $20 for one. It can last you a school year. But that is, again, one bottle, one child.
Yes. Wow. Did we hear that? $1,100, and she has one child. The primary school, she has to pay for the books, the uniforms, and it's books for lessons and books for my goodness. And you're a single mom.
I'm a single mother.
Wow.
So I'm out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying at the end of the month when it's coming, because I know after you go to the supermarket, when we had the 3 children living home, you get to supermarket and you think it's going to last for the month, and then it starts to, what happens? Is it that do people go to their extended families or what?
I don't know what they do, but I don't have that extended family to go to. What I will say to you is this: my salary, and I want you to understand, I'm working a full-time job. I have a part-time job as well. It cannot cover this back to school. I had to get a loan for back to school.
Oh my God.
And I also will say to you, I think it Maxine or yourself that was listing the pay range for skilled persons. I'm a manager. I'm in that range, Marcia. And it still does not make sense. At the end of the day, you are working so hard. You're working so many hours. You do not see it. Crop over has passed. I have been to no event You understand? Because when you look at getting ready for an event and paying for the event, and you look at the back to school bill, they're staring at you, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And so we need to stop judging people and thinking everybody's going to, any of the panelists have anything to say to her before she goes? Because there's somebody else is in the room. Folks, remember, use the link and come on and share your experience. Anybody else have anything for Miss Resilient? She's really resilient.
No, I really want to thank her for sharing, because I think a lot of people need to get a realistic picture of what's happening. And as I listen to what I consider to be some essential expenditures, she pointed out she can't leave work to go and pick up her child from school, but the school requires that you be off the premises at 3:30. And from the perspective of the school, that's understandable, unless there can be some initiative. I've heard of assistance. The government has paid assistance or whatever. Maybe could be some arrangement where, depending on the numbers, that there can be some supervision for students where they can then use the time to do their homework and so on. But it is, look, Barbados is extremely, extremely expensive. I don't want to, but if you're going to the supermarket, something shocked me a couple months ago. I went into the supermarket and I was looking at chicken. And when I saw the quantities that they were now packaging, in terms of, whole chickens are now cut in half, and then the halves are cut in. You used to see quarters, but we'd always see pretty much a half of a chicken. But I'm now seeing, let's say, a chicken leg. There's the thigh and the drumstick, and it's packaged as a single item. It really is telling us that the cost. I mean, today when I took the chicken out to cook it and I looked at the price, I said this was the price of twice as much a couple of years ago. And you're really seeing, and I worry for people who have the 4 children.
It's difficult. It's really, really difficult. Miss McLean, Loyal Daughter 66 is on. Thank you so much, Miss Resilient. We're moving a little fast because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance. And Loyal Daughter 66 is on. Thank you so much for being on. You're quite resilient. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you as well.
Thank you. I see John is on, and I'm going to ask John. John, you have to leave and make sure your devices are connected. So leave, John, because we want to hear from you. So leave and come back in, okay? Thank you so very much. Okay, Loyal Daughter 66, welcome.
Good night, Marcia. Good night, panel. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yes. How are you surviving this high cost of living in Barbados?
It is a struggle. I must admit, it is a struggle. What people need to realize now, in the present time, since 2018, is that some people can only eat well on Sundays. And then what is left will go for Monday, and hopefully you will eat out something for Tuesday. But note, cooking don't go on very regularly in most households nowadays, because you can't afford, unless you're going to give the child ramen. And I don't eat ramen, and I'm not encouraging my grandchild to eat ramen. I'm a grandmother. And I have been assisting my son and his wife with their daughter to face what is happening now with this high cost of living. I have reduced my spending so that I can assist them more. Because at the end of the day, that is my grandchild. And she has to have the best, even if it may not be the best in a rich man's world, but the best in the average Bajan's eyesight.
Yes.
Because it's not her fault.
No.
And what have me distressed is the fact that she is an innocent who will have a debt wrung her neck for as long as she is alive in Barbados because of this government. People said that under the previous administration, things were bad. Things were hard, yes, but not like this. This is the worst I have ever seen Barbados. I can remember when I was going to school when Tom said, tighten your belt. And my grandparent and my mother had to tighten the belt, but it was not like this. I can remember those days.
Yes. What is your what do you see as your greatest the greatest expense when the month comes?
The greatest expense is food.
Food.
If you want to eat properly, now they're talking about healthy lifestyles, but to eat healthy in Barbados is a farce. You can't afford to buy the vegetables. You can't afford to buy the fruits that you're supposed to be using. Nah.
Yeah.
So how can you maintain a healthy lifestyle? You can't afford these things.
Wow. And so as a grandmother, you are taking on a lot of trying to help, is it Caswell or Mr. Murray, any questions or thoughts?
I would think, because she was talking about people can't afford to cook after, like, you cook Sunday, that go for Monday, and then thereafter you might not cook during the week. That is a reality that sometimes I have to fill in for some people who are not related in any way. And when I hear these stories, I don't
you know of this. You know what she's saying. This is the truth.
I know what she's saying is true, because well, I'm not going to try to advertise it here because I don't want to put more burden on me. But I see it. I see it on a daily basis. The problem here is, at one time, at least during the week, everyone at primary school, you had a decent lunch. So that used to help you out. But now they give you some school meal scrap, and they give you buns and hot dogs and all kind of foolishness. And, the food is, first of all, it's poor. The school meal workers have to bring in condiments and chives and all kinds of stuff to help to make the food up better out their own pockets. They have been doing that. So when people, at least one time, if you didn't have the money, you at least got a good lunch. No, you're not getting that. So it's even making it even worse for the people, because food in Barbados is expensive, and the government does not want to meet the expense of providing even a good lunch for the children who are going to school. And let me tell you something. You're not going to learn if you're hungry.
It's true.
That's a real problem.
It's true.
And that is why you will see people who are at the common entrance exam, and you see all these people, their father's doctor this and manager this and all that. And why? Because they can take care of their children and give them at least a reasonable diet. The other people hungry, you can't hungry and study. And that's a major problem. And you see, government is not recognizing that there's a crisis in that area, and they're going on and having all these foolish facts and all kind of foolishness in it, and causing people to. And I think our people got to start to use their own judgment and realize that you have this for Prime Minister fact that $200, $250 for cheapest ticket and $500, I understand, and shit, there's walking up the railway and cornering bare money. Then people working, a lot of people working hotels and all kind of stuff and working, and they're paying a week's pay to go in there.
Yeah.
You got to protect them from themselves.
It's really, really, really tough. Mr. Murray, any quick comments? Let me just say, one second, Mr. Murray, just reminding people to come in. This is your time. We don't want to take up your time talking. We want it to be your time. Okay, so we're giving you that opportunity. So please come in. Diaspora, I see you, but you're you need to go back out and connect your mic and camera before you come in. So go back out and make sure that the mics and camera is that those are connected. Okay, please, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Murray, real quick.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought these persons who are living these lives to give actual illustration of their daily and weekly and monthly experiences. It takes me, I think we have regret. Barbados has gone backwards since 2018. I'm hearing stories that I heard growing up in the 50s and early 60s, I thought we had progressed out of. But one of the reasons why all previous leaders of Barbados have avoided the IMF, because they used to call it international servers, like, so the last thing you would do is to not get in their hands. This government sailed into their open arms and made us believe that it was going to be a panacea for Barbados, that we were going to be better off. Made us feel, oh, we saw, foreign exchange and we get, but there's no government in the world, no country like IMF existed that has prospered there. They are the engines of poverty and sustained poverty. That's why people know you can't basic things that we got from government before, like allowances or repairs to your house, health insurance. Those are took out the IMF because it does not happen in the state. So why should it happen with you? Years ago, we used to be condemned by the IADB, the World Bank, the IMF, because our house rents were too low, our bus fares were too low, school fees were too low. How were they getting school meals? How could they get computers when we don't do it? So we have played into their hands through the connivance. This government, this for me, will all be condemned for the big trick they've played on Barbados and making them believe that life could be better for them under the IMF. It's a disgrace, and people that know you have austerities and conditionalities, but this is what it is, the real thing. Hardship. What we call the hard times. These are more than the hard and long times.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Listen, Loyal Daughter 66. Someone is saying here that we need to stop blaming your politicians. You, the people, are the government. Take some self-responsibility for your own actions. And this person lives overseas and has been saying that it is because people are not, they're buying brand name stuff and they're eating GMOs and they're not eating like back in the day. Why your food bill? Because you said food is a big bill for you. What is it that you are buying a lot of processed food? What's happening? Because Noel, he doesn't live here, but this is what he believes. Can you do you agree with him?
Let me lighten his darkness somewhat. Now, I was not raised on brand name, so that is not part of my upbringing. I did not instill that in my son. He is not instilling that in his daughter. So we don't deal in brand. Okay? Brand name is nothing. I'm not making anybody rich with my hard-earned money.
Mm-hmm.
We buy food that is essential to us.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going for sweet potatoes, you have to pay an arm, a leg, your wisdom tooth, your kidneys, and your liver to get ground provisions in Barbados. So if you want sweet potato, you want yams, or you want anything like that, you have to pay through your teeth to get them. And that is the kind of food that we eat. We don't eat the processed. We can't afford the processed food.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else I would like to add, Marcia. In that, as a boy growing up, my father planted the yams, the sweet potatoes, the okras, the eddas, and all kind of stuff. So we didn't have to buy them. But now, when government provides you with a house lot, it's only enough for a house and a clothesline. You can't plant a single pea tree around the house because there's no space. So I think what has happened, we were thinking, we are going to provide a lot of housing, and house lots, but the house lots cannot accommodate the lifestyle that we grew up in the 50s and the 60s knew. Like I used to work at the kitchen garden when I was a little boy. above our house. You know, I went to the ground. I have, you know, but nobody got that now. And so when people talking about you're living above your means, you gotta buy these things though, because you can't provide them for yourself because you don't have the wherewithal. Very many people my wife plants a few little things around the house every so often. You know, you, Marcia, I see you plant a couple of things, but how many people do that? How many people can afford to do that?
Yes. Or have the time when you have so many, when you have the children and so on, like you have the union to look at, you know, all of that, the time, it's very time consuming, and a lot of us don't know. I'm still learning, don't know what to do. But somebody said here, Miss McLean, and I just want to put this up here, because we want to involve the people in the conversation about pot fish, fresh ground foods. Having lands and doing growing on it is a waste, and so I understand that. But you hear now, well, not everybody has this land and also the know-how. The pot fish is very expensive.
$15 a pound.
So Noel comes and he probably buy for himself. Noel, you got to scale that up now for a family of 4 or 5. Pot fish, I don't buy pot fish. It's expensive. Miss McLean.
Yeah, I as I listen, I'm trying to think. I think of what I do, because I don't have the luxury of a husband to split my expenses with.
I'm going to get you started. You don't worry.
Don't worry. Thank you. But in all seriousness, I mean, and I come from a big family. Thankfully, we are very close knit. As I listen. And I thought of you, Marcia, and something that you introduced me to, Jamaica Callaloo. I am thinking, you see, I wrote down something here, helping out each other, avoiding wasting, sharing. In the last 3 days of last week, 3 people brought me breadfruit. And I did 2 things. One, I called my 2 brothers and my sister, and I spoke to a neighbor. 3 things. And I cooked some, and if you go into my freezer, you will find it. The reason is that we know that spoils quickly, right? And therefore, it can be wasted. The other thing, though, is that we also have to get into the business of, we waste a lot of food. I shared only earlier today with my niece a recipe for a tamarind drink that came up. And you know what they put in the tamarind drink as well? Because I noticed a lot of people now are buying pineapples in the supermarket. What do you do when you peel that pineapple? We throw away the peelings, right? No. This recipe involves tamarind, pineapple, and other things. The point I'm making is that we have to find a way. And I agree that, like, they say broccoli is $18 a head in the supermarket. But you know what I buy often? Spinach, which is because, you see, we have to find a way. And because my worry, I buy broccoli. In fact, it is a little cheaper. Depends on which supermarket you go to. That's the other thing. But I think we have to look at how. And for me, my formula is keep my meals simple. Caswell, did you have the traditional Bajan dinner and lunch? Macaroni pie, chicken, rice. They have about 6 or 7. I tell people keep it simple. I'm not saying that the people that we're talking about who is only earning $400 a week can do this, but some people do. And the question is, how are you surviving? And I want to say something, Marcia, to speak about the use of things like credit cards and hire purchase. Those 2 things are killing poor people. And I would say this, I had to speak to a young man the other day and give him a lesson in using his credit card, because the reality is, for him, it is his means of surviving. But the challenge is, when you pay only the minimum balance, you are paying an interest rate of $23 per $100 or 23 cents per dollar in interest over a year. So I said to him, yes, you may have to use it, but you are getting trapped in paying the minimum balance. Yeah. Similarly, hire purchase is about the same kind of thing. I encourage people in the early days, Caswell, we would encourage them to go there
Join
the
all
credit
no, I
union
still encourage
and
them.
get
Go to
a
credit
Okay.
union.
loan
All
on,
right.
you know. So I think there's some things we have to look at as
To
well.
look at to see how we can
How
do
we
that.
can,
Let me
because
find
it
out
doesn't
from
solve the
loyal
problem, but it
daughter
helps.
66 if there's anything else that she wants to say. I know I saw Diaspora trying to get in, and Dave is there trying to help her to get in. But is there anything, loyal daughter 66, that you want to say? This is your time. Is there anything else you want to say?
The only thing that I would like to happen is that when election bell ring, we vote them out. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you, loyal daughter 66. Yeah.
Michael Nurse, go to Bridgetown Fisheries Complex, and you can tell me if I'm not speaking the truth. You might go to Pile Bay at the fishermen that come out the boat. I went to Pile Bay once in my life. And that's because it was rambling.
Marcia?
Yes.
I'd like to say that one of the biggest, the most expensive item outside of back to school is food. I'd like to say that we have an utter embarrassment as a minister of he should not call himself agriculture and food security. In that way, I don't get chance to a chief agricultural officer. None of the experts talk about anything happening in the ministry. None of the advice about growing this, planting that. We should have programs on the radio and TV. Encourage people to plant for themselves the whole economy. Nothing is that. I've always heard about fanciful schemes involving Belize and Guyana and what, and we're not seeing the return. That is the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is not performing its role.
You must remember one of his priorities was marijuana. You remember? I went through a whole joint select committee because they wanted to introduce this medical marijuana, and the guy who was planting all those foods and things down in down by Hammonds, the Australian guy, kick him off the property, and like down there's a bar waiting for marijuana to be planted on it. This government is a base.
Well,
the Minister of Agriculture certainly is true.
1 second, Mr. Murray. We do have a someone on the line. Diaspora, finally you made it. Welcome. Diaspora, can you hear me? Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. You're Diaspora. All of these people have these pseudonames, you know, Mr. Murray. That these are their names. Now, here's the thing. You're saying Diaspora. That's because you live in the diaspora.
Yes, I do live a Barbadian living in the diaspora.
Yes, and so someone might ask.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you very loud and clear. So somebody might ask, what do you know about our high cost of living in Barbados?
So, as a Barbadian, you know, we do love to come back to Barbados from time to time. We come back, you know, maybe sometimes 3-4 times a year. And, you know, sometimes we stay more than 2 weeks. We might stay 3 months. We might stay 4 months. It depends. And so we would have been going to the supermarket and buying different things. And when we compare, we are just... it blows your mind because we do not understand, you know, how our families are surviving. For instance, we would go to one of the larger supermarkets, and what we found over a period of like, let's say 2 months, every time we went back there, every week, the prices went up between 75 cents and perhaps $2. So we are saying if you're buying a bag of rice, let's say, well, rice is not a good example. If you're buying a bottle of something that costs something that's essential, let's say it's essential, and it costs $2.50, you go back, it's $3. You go back again, it's $3.25. We're wondering now, we could probably afford to buy it because, you know, it's temporary. But for somebody who's having, like the lady who was speaking before, how how are they managing? Because that's not sustainable. Your salaries are not going up. So how are you going to continue? How are you going to be able to provide for your family at these, these costs? They're going up, and your salaries remaining the same, or you're laid off. It just does not make sense. And we hear all sorts of horror stories. And what the lady who was speaking before was saying about cooking on Sunday and casual, he was saying that's true. That's absolutely true with our families. They cook on Sundays. It's left back for Monday, and we don't see any activity going on between Tuesday and Friday. And then they may buy something on Friday night. Chicken and chips or something from maybe one of the local folks. In the from the local folks in the neighborhood. But we are it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, yes, it is. I remember the first time, Mr. Murray, that I heard of people, that people want to cook.
So we're just not sure, like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're not sure where folks are going with. You if the condition, if this is, you're seeing that everything is going wrong, it's going.
She seemed to be there's a delay or something. If you're listening to the program at the same time too, it might mess you up a little bit. I'm not sure if that's what's happening. So you might have to turn off another device.
Okay.
Yes, right. Mr. Morris, any comment that you have on what this person in the diaspora said?
Yeah, I'm saying it really is about time. There was a story in today's Sunday Sun involving an interview with Minister Kerry Simmons. I hadn't had time to read it because I really put anything he says lower down the priority. But I'll read it tomorrow. But I'm saying that we need government has to come up with a way of trying to cut back on some of these prices. I'm not sure what they will do. I'm not sure what they're allowed to do because they're in the hands of the IMF. But you can't just leave people out there on adrift on their own and say that you're resilient. Well, sure, you're resilient because resilience is only a reflection of the basic instinct in every creature to survive. That's what resilience means. Don't want the fancy title, survival. And I think the ministry of what Minister Simmons is, I'm not sure what he is these days. But the point is, government is a leader. Government has put us largely in this because of its policies, and they have an obligation to find a package of means and these to try to ease the cost of living for Barbados. That is their obligation. And don't just blame on the outside world. In other times in our life, our leaders, which left, came up with programs that help people to modify the situation and survive. People were just left on their own as though the leaders are living in a different world in a different country.
Yeah, I remember just in diaspora. I don't know if you were around at that time or clued into what was happening in Barbados. But when this government was in the opposition, they said that though the DLP brought us it was the year of the last decade, and
last decade, yes.
bad on Barbados. I wonder what we're going to call this period of time, because a lot of people, they say, well, don't blame the government, but the point, as Mr. Murray is saying, that the reason that they go in, they say that they're going to give you a better life. They're going to create the environment that we can then make a better life for ourselves. There's things that government will need to do. So I don't know. Do you think diaspora that the government should be left out of this? We should figure it out ourselves. We should not ask the government to change anything. We shouldn't blame the government. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, the government is at the center. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes.
There's an echo, but you keep going.
Yeah, the government is at the center of everything. They make policy. There must be a leader in the country, and everything is, is government is involved with every aspect of our lives. So we cannot, we cannot vote and have these people who are leading a country and say, well, when things are good we give them the kudos, but when things are bad, we have to leave them out. That doesn't make any sense to me. And another story I wanted to share with you is that, we've heard of folks who, at this time, in this era, they're resorting to buying like half a pack of things and one onion, and then you have to stretch it for that day for 5 or 6 people. This is nuts. It's just nuts.
I guess it's like what Miss McLean was saying, that people are going and buying a chicken leg and a thigh together. They're now selling it
Yeah.
like that. And,
Yes.
and as a Jamaican, I can tell you this, Diaspora, that when you see those kinds of things happening, it means that the poor among us, that group of people that you would call the poor, has grown significantly. When you see a supermarket start to parcel out things so small, and somebody buying one onion, and those kinds of things, and what is going on. And was this at a supermarket that you saw this happening, or you heard of it happening?
Yeah, well, I heard of it. It's not a supermarket. It would be like the local, well, we would call them a bodega, but like just a small store in the neighborhood, like the one that would be around the corner. It's not the mom and pop store, but it has shelves and so on. But it's just like a small
A
little
small
place.
shop, like
Yeah.
Yes. I muted you, Casual, because of the feedback. Go ahead.
I've seen that in Barbados.
You've seen that?
I've actually gone into a supermarket. I don't advertise for them, but I went there because I wanted to get some turkey wings. I don't like them myself, but I was going to get them for somebody. And we went to the counter at the back of the supermarket, and the lady came and she said she wanted $1 in flour. She was ahead of me, and
What?
the people, she wanted $1 in flour, and the people put a flour in a little thing in a bag and put it on the scale till they come to $1. Now the scales go up, the little scales with the numbers on them. When I get $1, take it off. And she had other little things in the little picture. I was shocked that this was happening in Barbados. This was happening in Bridgetown.
Because I heard about something like that, and I was a little shocked. I'm wondering, it kind of feel like it's not real. So both of you are saying this happened. Miss McLean said she saw a chicken leg and another piece of meat, a little piece of chicken selling together, the small portions. So they are responding to the crisis. We're in a crisis, is what I'm trying to say. And people are, wow, this is deep.
But it is stupidity, though. We have chicken there, and you see the people who produce the chicken saying that they have to put them in cold storage. No, sell them cheaper and don't pay the cold storage cost.
Thank you, Cas. Well, I was saying that exactly to somebody today. Work out the cost of the cold storage if you hold it for the next X number of months, and look at what your cost of production were, and recognize that you can sell them cheaply. Well, sell them to recover your costs and make whatever you can, but you're going to put them and park them there. But it also tells you that Barbadians also have to recognize the nutritional value and how best to use something like a chicken breast, as opposed to paying, because chicken wings now have become very expensive. And when you think in terms of the quality of the protein, you're getting it. I like chicken wings, but
who doesn't?
I don't buy them. I don't buy the imported ones.
As someone said, Diaspora, somebody saying we need to have a show to talk about, probably just some creative ways how people can budget. But we need to understand what we're in. I find that Diaspora in Barbados, a lot of times, Mr. Franklin, we don't like to look at the situation that we're facing.
True.
We tend to like to cover over things, and I think we need to continue to have these shows, because I'm learning a lot on this. I didn't know about the small the small parceling out of things. And I know that from a child that when that started to happen in Jamaica is where the poorer, that we started to lose our middle class. We became poor, like dirt poor. And so if we don't see this as a crisis now, Diaspora, we're going to run into trouble. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Diaspora, before we go?
I just, as a Barbadian living overseas, we are weeping for our country. We are, because we're seeing it, through a different lens, and we do not understand. You cannot continue to vote against your own interests and vote to hasten your demise.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And we're just hoping that Barbadians, through your show and other avenues, that they say, well, enough is enough. I saw somebody saying earlier on the show, enough is enough is enough. You cannot co-sign your own death, so to speak, because when you're eating so unhealthy, you're gonna the QEH is gonna continue to be filled. The conditions, they are not good. Like, it's this never-ending circle, and we just have to be, just try to do better, and be more mindful of what's happening, with what people are doing to us.
Yes. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Diaspora,
thank you.
and I know if it's not for the Diaspora, somebody wrote and said to me just a while ago, I'm struggling, but they have family overseas that help them. So the Diaspora, we want to thank you and big you up, and for helping a lot of the people, a lot of us here in Barbados, we get a little something when it's Christmas time, a little barrel or so.
By the way, somebody saw me on Friday and gave me $50 and said, this is the fellow who fell off the roof. So I have $50, $50 for him.
Wow.
At work,
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Marcia, and thank you to all your guests, and to
Thank you very
thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you for joining, and thank you for being on the program and following.
Yes, thank you, Diaspora, for coming. I see John. Oh boy, John has been trying, and he finally got through. John, good night. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
He almost get through, yeah.
John, you have to unmute your mic.
Come on, John.
Unmute your mic, John. Click on the mic and unmute your mic.
No, he clicked on the wrong thing.
Click on the wrong thing. Oh no. He sent me a message in the private chat, and I will read it because he wants to speak. He says, I wanted to speak, but my mic wouldn't work. I too can't get medication at polyclinic. I can't afford to buy meds on my pension and pay my rent. Listen, guys, and stop judging. I find that we judge too much. Listen to the pain of the people. Understand what is going on. So this is a pensioner, Mr. Franklin. And he's saying he cannot buy the meds on his pension and pay his rent. My rent is most of my pension, and I'm not doing well since my body is missing the medication.
Marcia, but that's I may want to talk about that, because the government has this way of buying a lot of crap medicines. They call them generics. Some of the generics are not working, but they have actually. I got some medication, and they said, well, oh, that's not on the formula anymore, because I'm old enough to get free medication now. And so the doctor told me, no. You tell them to give you what I put on the prescription. I don't want the generics, because those generics, sometimes they're made from a different process. It might be the same chemical, but the body cannot extract the what you need from it. So you have something like, when you analyze it, it's the same chemical that you want, but because the way it's made, your body cannot extract it. So he started tapping me, and he writes on my prescription, no generics. Right? So then which case then, even though I'm old enough to get them free, the generic is on the formula, but the good one is not. So that's another problem that we are seeing here. And that brings you to the part, but it's only the cost of living that is raising, it's the cost of dying. You say a funeral recently, and that, you know what bothers me? Before I just want to go to funerals. You see that little device that lowers the people into the grave? You gotta pay for that every time. You know how much people that lower them? The undertakers get that the value of that they've done too many times. I remember the days when my grandmother died. You used to lower it down. So these strong fellas, no, it was strong fellas in those days, people hold a little thing and people lower it down. And then, okay, now nobody does that anymore. And everybody gets this little device. And the takers could buy 10 of them with the money that I met from a few funerals after. But everybody's ripping you off.
Yeah.
From cradle to grave.
I'm telling you, you know what? Thanks, Mr. Franklin. That's another point as well. Diana Mucketeer is saying that my husband and I just spent over $300 in groceries. My husband and I, because Dave and I, we just went to get groceries, and we didn't pick up a whole lot, 3 bags, and it was $250. And I can tell you, we're not people that eat a lot of processed foods. No, and we don't try to go beyond our means. And I use my garden to supplement. I'm that kind of person. And I'm telling you, we don't do that. And I was shocked when he told me, you know, I was completely shocked. Things that we used to buy it for, say, $12. It's now $13. It gone up a whole dollar, not even 25 cents. I saw that with my eyes. So, you know, people were saying that, you know, it's because people buying expensive food. I don't buy expensive food. It's just her and her husband, and it's $300 in groceries. And I can guarantee you by a week or a little over a week, she has to go back to the supermarket. I agree. I believe you, Diana Muckett. And I remember a little boy that I was, you know, at the school, and he was telling me that when my mother cooks on a Sunday, she doesn't cook again. And I was wondering if he was making it up. You understand? And listening here on the program, you realize, Miss McLean and Mr. Murray, we need to get it. We need to change our mindsets. You understand? We need to understand how people are really living.
You need to find out how many people drink a cup of tea and maybe a piece of bread instead of having a plate of food, as Bajans would describe it. That is also very much a reality. That some, you know, you mentioned once a week. Some people, North Americans may cook once a week, but they cook enough food for the whole week. But in Barbados, the once a week is having a proper meal for some people.
And this is a thing, you know, Mr. Murray. They're saying yes, I do believe we understand that, but let's not come tonight now. And the people are telling they can't even take care of their medication because they have to take care of the rent. Remember, he didn't mention food yet, you know. What do you tell somebody like that? You're gonna tell them it's their fault? Is that what we're going to tell them? Now, this person is saying that the prime minister said, because they like to, and I think I heard election coming up again, but a lot of these people, whatever the party is, love to make these promises to us Barbadians, and we need to hold them accountable. Where is to the cost of living? You say you're going to cut the cost of living. Look at where we are. We are at the moment. You know, Mr. Murray, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, I know very often when we complain about the cost of living, some of the defenders of the government say that, what's your solution? I am not an expert. The government, I think it's wrong, unfair to ask ordinary people to come up with a solution to complex problems when they don't have the access to the information, the machinery, or whatever. That's what they're asked to do. That is what they went into the government for. It is them to come up with the solutions to people because problem. But when I heard the stories tonight, it made me go back to Spooners Hill when I used to be sent to the shop for an ounce of butter. Half the lard oil. That was the reality of those days, the 50s, 60s, right? Before I started to work at Saffron. I know we're going right back to then. And you're talking about millennium goals and this, and people can't get the basics. You know, there are a lot of fantasies. Get back to the basics.
But you know, Glenn, the thing that bothers me, and I look at the crop over, I listened to a young woman on a video, somebody was asking about what she did for crop over. And she listed off about 5 things. And each of those things might have run her for the special party, the thing maybe $300. So you imagine people, some people are now, well, some can afford it. Others are borrowing money to party. And that is another concern, you know, and where people can afford the very extravagant. Think of what it does to people who are seeing activities advertised that cost more than their weekly or monthly salary.
Marcia Square 4 is saying on the chat, had it not for this show and Caswell saying last year that the young people buying ramen to feed their children, I couldn't understand what he wasn't learning up to now. You know, he didn't understand.
Me too. When you said the ramen, honestly, you see, let me just say something. You are the first person I heard about that, Miss McLean. Since this is so, I've been in Barbados 20-something years. I have never seen this kind of suffering, and it just reminds me of how it was in Jamaica when things started to turn. And I heard Mr. Franklin talk about the ramen, and then I start, you know me, I go ask people, and they tell me yes, that is what a lot of them eat is
it's
ramen.
It's $1 and something a pack.
Because it's $1 and something a pack, and that's what we have been reduced to.
I've never eaten it. I've only seen it. It doesn't look good to me. Mind you,
I have some in my house. I have a nephew who likes it, but I've never eaten any. But that's what a lot of students and so on and families survive on. I mean, that in itself is not a problem. But if that is the sum total or the main part of your meal, that is where we have a serious problem.
No, we had some in our house, but we gave it to Snow, and she liked it.
Oh, I thought you said that she rejected it.
No, she rejects chow.
Yeah. But somebody here is saying topics from me in the past 8 months. We hear about the Cricket World Cup. We hear about Kapova. We hear about party. We hear about fete. We hear about having fun. We hear about football. And yes, she did say something about the crime because the pressure was on. So let's not say no social issues. Nothing on the healthcare. Nothing on cost of living, nothing on policy, and that is and nothing substantial. We heard a little something on the healthcare. Seemed like they want to privatize that, and I'm telling you, guys, you don't see separation yet. You understand? We don't see separation yet, and you know, people will want to come, Mr. Franklin, and curse us on the show, but we are not the ones creating the problems. We're giving the people an opportunity, and Miss McLean, I remembered when I put the picture up of the guys who listen, don't come with no jokes.
Listen, Marcia, quickly. I have two. They're not from Caswell, but I have two that turned out to be Caswell's too. So they said
This staying serious on the people's serious business tonight. You go out and get the jokes now. But you make me miss what I'm saying. Something very important though, because I'm serious, because they've stopped laughing in the background there. I serious though, you know, guys. I know we want to laugh and so on, but when somebody cannot, their pension is not enough for their rent, and they have to find money to buy their medication, and then there's food. No, a lot of people, you know, I spoke to somebody a couple of days ago, and they're a professional, and they said to me they were almost homeless. And we're seeing a lot of people on the streets, and we're thinking it's drugs. We're doing a lot of judgments, is what I'm saying. And I remember when I put on the screen the picture of the boys who were shot. There are people who tell me, take it off, I don't want to look at it. We got to look at the situation. We can't come up with any solutions. We can't empathize if we kind of first have to understand. I learned something tonight. I didn't know people were buying in those small, I didn't know. I learned something, and we can empathize and we can understand our Barbadians way better. But that's my little preaching. Mr. Murray, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that we talk about youth, we talk about students, we talk about so, but there's a particular segment of people we haven't really focused on yet: the elderly, as a group, as a cohort. And I feel just to give me a chance to voice my dissent, I'm a life member of BARB. As most organizations, the BCA, I do it one time life member of BARB. And BARB to me has missed its calling. BARB, especially in these circumstances with the membership, they like to bargain about 20, 30,000 people. There should be one of the biggest forces of agitation and activism in Barbados on behalf of people, because most of the membership must be struggling, have to be struggling. And BARC needs to change its profile, stop being known for a fat amount, stop being so much concerned about profile as a big institution, and get back to basics and become the largest single agitator for, or we say, your aging population, which means you have a ready-made uh, constituency. That is the work of BARC. Should be doing more detailed, practical micro business, microeconomic stuff on behalf of people, rather than a lot of fine stuff. They bought a building, Moringa. How do you leave? You remember they had a property they call of Britain's Hill, one of the most heavily trafficked places in Barbados. They say in business, location, location. The three most important things are location, location, location. How do you sell a place for an organization that is dealing with retired elderly people in the heart of Bridgetown? Easy to reach with bus, taxi, and go to, was it Worthing?
No, up there by Marine,
Here's
up by Marine, up by
Here
Marine.
says, yeah, a nice house, Think about the cost and the maintenance of that house. How do you give up that? You had your own, you could have sold it. I remember when after offered them some deals and some incentives to do some work, but they never took it. They could have enhanced that. So rather you go and buy an old nice building, Marine, great stuff where the white people and all the rich people, the British live. But it doesn't make sense. You're off the beacon track. And I think those kind of priorities, I'll talk about that building sometime. I won't give you all of that one time. They got some questions about that building, that is not fair. And I think so. Therefore, I think BARC needs to get real and get involved on these things, and don't just think that you're some. BARC is not the Lions Club. BARC
Yeah,
is not.
but
BARC is not.
Glenn, there too are finding work for the three F's: friends, family, and, well, I don't know if they can do much for getting no, but
As well, I tell you, don't get me laughing in this serious thing here tonight. Anyway,
or not you would have a pension plan for your people instead of sourcing it from certain places. But I'll talk about that another time.
yeah,
Yeah.
but no, seriously, this is something, and we need to do a show where we just give
Invite Barb, invite Marlon Riceborn and someone come and talk about Barb, right? Let's come and defend their program and learn some lessons.
Yeah. But somebody here is saying that, and I think we need to. I'm trying to read some of them that came in on the phone. The Mia Motley administration rushed to the IMF because they were devoid of ideas. The IMF was a short-term fix, but a lifetime nightmare, and the government continues to be void of ideas and solutions to take the country forward. And let me tell you, we learn our lessons from that IMF, right? And when you look and you see, on another show, I will bring to you the numbers from the different Caribbean islands, and you will see how much Barbados. I don't understand. I mean, it's like why we're taking so much money and it's not generating anything for us. Jobs. People are still without jobs. We're not seeing much economic activity in the country that would generate jobs. But I tell you, oh my goodness. But guys, thank you so much for sharing your real life story with us. The shuttle service, we learned about that tonight, right, Miss McLean? $200 to $400 a month. Lessons is another $120 to $200 per month. We learned also about the we learned also about the back to school. We're gonna have to do a show just on back to school. The lady said she spent $1,100 on back to school, and she has not yet finished shopping, and she has one child. I mean, that is crazy. Oh God.
And it was a primary school child too, not even
Primary
secondary
school,
school.
yes, because you have to pay for the books. The books, she told me, it's I forgot how much she said the books were. And then you have books for lessons, and then books for regular, and then the uniform. And she's not even buying 5 uniforms. She's doing 4. She told me 4 uniforms. Trying to cut and contrive. My God, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. Guys, we've gone over the time, and but oh Lord, I tell you, this is very, very serious, and I think yeah, I know somebody said they blame the DLP. Yeah, listen, at this moment, I mean, I do we really want to do that? Do you know the ins and outs? Do we know what is really going on there? Because I think that there is a plan afoot trying to make us a one-party state. That is what they're trying to do, and we have to fight against it and decide that we do not want a one-party state, because they soon have us eating dirt. And they're eating. When you think that, imagine what they serve, Mr. Franklin, at these big parties that are being held. What they serve? You think they serve ramen and all these things?
Of course not. The cheapest thing a fish gets are the saltfish that cost so much an arm and a leg. One thing saltfish used to be for the poor people. Now, if you want to get some saltfish, you pay $40 a thing for two as much as a pound or 2 pounds. $48.
Yeah, somebody say, how come the economy grow by 4%, but things are brown, and talking about we don't have much inflation really. So what is happening in what are we seeing? Can somebody then come and explain what are we seeing? Are you cooking the numbers? What are you doing? What we are feeling?
You see, the thing is, you can't cook numbers, you gotta cook some food.
Some food, right?
Yeah. Just to say where the numbers are concerned, I have no faith personally in anything that comes out of the central bank. The central bank governor worked politically to devise the BOSS program. He's a product of the IMF, so he's not being. I don't think he's being professional and biased and whatnot. So I think and I've heard him talk about we rather than the government, and that's sort of we. So therefore, the institution that should be the guiding light, the standard bearer, to whom you should to look for guidance and authentic information, that, along with the statistical department, I think they have both been compromised.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Murray, and I think that might be your final thought for the night.
It sounds as though you got your wish. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Murray. Let me go to Miss McLean. Your final thoughts.
I want to say that the crisis is very real, and I think what we need to do is, while we can advocate for certain government actions to address it, we're going to have to work on some what I call homegrown and community-grown solutions. And one comment, I can't let it go. There was a reference to the debt under the DLP. It would be useful, I don't remember who was the person who made the comment, to do a comparison between what transpired between 2008 and 18 and now, because he mentioned domestic debt. Domestic debt is paid in Barbados dollars. Foreign debt is paid in foreign currency, and we have to generate foreign currency. And if you're talking about activity that is not what it should be, then that creates another challenge. But I don't want to take it too far, Marcia. No.
Yes.
But I think it is important to say that, because people make these quips and people don't stop to analyze. And I'm saying that not from a partisan political, but from the point of view of analysis and research
information as we
facilitate understanding.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, I wanted to say something when Maxine was talking, but I didn't want to interrupt because I was doing too much of that. Maxine spoke about people using the credit cards, right? Unfortunately, that is a real problem. And you're using credit cards for day-to-day living. No, credit cards should be used when you want to buy something. Like, for instance, when I want to use my credit card, I pay for my Zoom, or something like that. I order something from Amazon or something, I pay for credit card. I cannot afford to. You should not be buying food and gasoline with a credit card because you have to buy it again next week and the week after. But the problem is people are doing this kind of. They're hoping that they keep the credit card going, and you will never pay off credit card debt if you only pay the minimum charge because those interest rates are through the roof. What people must do, or what the government must do, when the merchants have the prices really high, and we know we can get better, do what Barra did. Do what Branford Tate did. Barra established the Barbados Marketing Corporation, and they imported food and sold them at a price that was reasonable and forced the merchants to bring reasonable prices or you'll be left out. Now you have actually closed down things that would benefit the poor people. The BMC now is brand chicken wings. They call it BADMC now, BADMC now, but they don't really do any of that importation of things that we really need to keep the merchants. If the merchants want to bring that $10, we bring it at, and mind you, they want to sell it at $35. But the government was bringing that $10 and selling it at $15. Government needs to intervene to protect people from those greedy merchants. We have too much price gouging. One of my first jobs, but the second job I had after leaving school was working I was a customs clerk for the cost of mussel. They imported food and all kinds of stuff. They imported almost everything we imported in Barbados. And sometimes when you look at the price that I worked out when I declared them at customs, and then when you see them on the shelf, they were astronomical. The markups were out of this world. I remember simple things like bread pads for cards. Used to come in a barrel, cheap. And they used to cost one was less than $1 when you import it, but it was costing $10 when you had to buy it. I don't understand how, and the duties were negligible. What we have in Barbados are people who, and especially this merchant class. My wife told me don't say that anymore, so I won't say it. But these people who have children who want to learn good at school, and you got to provide jobs to them. I call it idiot children. My wife is very vexed with me, so I'm not going to say that again. But they have to find jobs for them. If you find jobs for them, you have to, if you want your business to remain viable, you've got to put that job in the markup. And I've seen companies in Barbados where they have the receptionist with a company car. We got to pay for that. But the receptionist is family and friends. So we are paying. And government must look into these things. Things are too high because people are too greedy.
Yeah.
You can go at one supermarket I shop at and find something for $10 and then go to the one at Warren. That sometimes when they can't find it where I go there, it's $15. And all of them just come up on the same boat, buy from the same place. Yeah. So what is the markup? You want too much. We got to stop this and let people take a little bit at a time. A dollar and a dollar and a dollar and a dollar eventually becomes $100. But they want $100 one time.
Yeah. But there's so many solutions, so many things that we can look at. Tonight we focus a lot on the problem. So thank you, Mr. Franklin and Ms. McLean and Mr. Murray and the audience are trying to offer some solutions. And we're going to continue this. I think we need to look at this a bit more and getting more information. So get ready. We're going to keep doing this for a while. before we gather the information, Miss McLean, and then we're able to come up with some solutions, as we always do on this show. I want to thank everybody for joining, for those who came on and bore their souls. Barbadians, we are not naturally like that. We like to suffer in our silence, and we like to make sure that nobody knows what's really going on. So it is I'm happy that we can, and I'm hoping, I think Dave is telling me something about March. I'm not sure what he's saying to me. But Dave has a song, something he wants to play, something new that came from Lily Rick, but it's quite interesting. Another Lily Rick, another foot in mouth again. I don't think he meant it for this, but listen, we gonna use it. We gonna use it. Hear this one now tonight. Are you ready, Dave?
Sometimes I feel like the bills gon' kill me, but I'm still holding on and standing strong. With the love soca give me, cause when I hit on the road, I get to the show, I jump on the stage. When I see your face, I run on the soca, lashing me bread. The all the problem just vanish away, because right now soca make me jump up, back and I lay me bed. Sitting make me walk up, look at us ease the bed.
What is it that Lyric is telling Barbadian, but is not saying? Did you hear him? Listen again carefully.
Soca make me jump up, back and I lay me bed. Sitting make me walk up, look at us ease the bed, ease the bed, ease the bed, ease the bed.
Do you get it? Rick is talking about the suffering of the Belgian people. But who is responsible for the suffering of the people? The government. This is why Barbadians love to party. They drown out their pain. The drinks numbs their brain and their pain vanish away. Is there a segment who numb their pain with drugs? And gone. Whatever it is, Belgians are in pain and therefore they need to change their leaders, this government. Rick is saying it. Did you hear?
With the love soca give me, cause when I hit on the road, I get to the show, I jump on the stage. When I see your face, I run on the soca, lashing me bread. The all the problem just vanish.
This is very, very interesting song, isn't it? A very interesting song. Lots to pick down in that, right? Yeah.
He ain't gonna get the dance behind them all, yeah.
But he pushing out some things. He talking about all. Listen carefully. We keep playing it each night and let it sink in. But this is the one that we have to play tonight.
Promise us a better tomorrow. Tell me that the suffering done. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me attack the boat and let me down. Barbados is too small for me. My pocket full, now you and job they promise me. And a girl like me want power and more money. You cry transparency, but that's a no for me. Promise us a better tomorrow. Tell me that it's suffering done. Me attack the vote and let me down. Me attack the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me attack the vote and let me down. Me attack the vote and let me down.
Good night, Barbados. Good night, Barbados. What a show we had tonight. And please share, even though we're finishing, we're done. I want you to share it to somebody else. Let them know the first 5 minutes there's no audio, right? There was some technical issue with my audio for the first 5 minutes, but all of it, the rest of it is great. Okay. God bless you all, and see you tomorrow night. Okay. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Maxine McLean, and thank you to Glenn Murray. God bless. Bye bye.
Bye bye.